Check, check, check. Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Kevin Joseph. I'm the band director over at Rhodes Junior High. And behind me, we have the Rhodes Junior High Jazz Band, and they'll be performing a first piece for you called Blues Machine. Hope you enjoy. Our next piece we have here for you today is Bye Bye Blackbird. Hopefully you enjoy. And then our final piece that we'll be performing for you this evening is Night in Tunisia by Dizzy Gillespie. Hope you enjoy. Thank you. Thank you so much for your applauses. What is the next segment of this? That is our performances for this evening. Did you want us to?
You.
Okay, awesome.
And we are so happy to have you here. What a delightful noise we just heard. What a great sound. It was wonderful.
Rhodes was swinging tonight.
Yes, we loved it. And you guys, keep it up. You're junior high. You got high school. Keep it up. You are so good. Very impressive. It was really great, and it really lifts our spirits and our moods tonight, so thank you. And I will introduce, this is from Rhodes Junior High Jazz Band. And it's under the direction of Kevin Joseph, who did a fabulous job. And they are not done because they're going to do our national anthem, and one of them is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And are you going to do that? Okay, you're welcome to do that. We appreciate that. We are going to start this meeting by having a moment of silence. I'll give you kind of the run of the meeting up front. And we will all rise for the moment of silence, after which we will call the meeting to order. Then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthem, and then we will have a video on the governing board meeting practices, at which time you guys can pack up. But we hate to see you go because you are so good. We really enjoyed it. Yes. I don't know why you picked the instruments you did, but they just sound so great together. There's so many things you can do with that talent. So I hope you will continue to work on your talents because it's well worth it. You are great. So after we have the national anthem, that's when you can sit down. So right now we can all rise. Okay, we will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do you have any concerts coming up that you'd like to mention? Yeah.
Absolutely. Love to have you out. So this is Rhodes Junior High Jazz Band, again, as mentioned. This is only one of the performing arts groups that's over at Rhodes Junior High. We actually have 3 performing arts groups. We have our 7th grade cadet band, we have our 8th grade wind ensemble, and then we have our Rhodes Jazz Band here. And our concert coming up here for the spring is on March 5th at 7 p.m. at Rhodes Junior High. So if you'd like to hear some more amazing music as such as tonight, please come on out at 7 o'clock at Rhodes Auditorium over on Longmore Road. Okay.
Yes, thank you. And I want to mention that their principal is here, Patty Christie. She's kind of tucked over there in the corner. Patty, you got to stand up. Glad you were able to come.
Mr. Joseph, if I may just say to you and your group, thank you for sharing your talents with us this evening. I tell you, if you closed your eyes for a moment and listened to the music, you would never imagine that there were 7th and 8th graders playing that music.
Oh.
It was simply marvelous
super.
and beautiful to listen to. That takes a lot of work on your behalf and behalf of the students, and kudos to you guys. Nice job.
Well done. Well done. Are any of the parents here of these children, are any of your parents here in the audience? No? Oh, well, you tell them the next time we have you, they better come. I bet they go to all your other concerts though, right? Yeah, I bet. Okay, well, thank you. We are going to go on to the video and we'll allow you guys some time to pack up your gear and exit the building. You do not have to stay. You probably are glad for that.
Welcome to the Mesa Public Schools Governing Board meeting. We appreciate your interest in the district. The 5 elected governing board members volunteer countless hours and serve without compensation. The president and the clerk of the board are elected in January. Under state law, the governing board may only discuss and vote on matters that are on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Agendas are posted a minimum of 24 hours in advance on the Mesa Public Schools website and in the Curriculum Services Center. Copies of tonight's agenda are located in the lobby. Members of the public may speak to the agenda items. If you wish to comment on any agenda item, please fill out a request to address the board form. These forms are also located in the lobby. Before the item is discussed, please submit the completed form to the assistant to the governing board. Members of the public will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. Once recognized by the governing board president, please state your name. We ask that all speakers show respect and courtesy to others. During the second regular meeting of each month, the agenda will include a call to the public, which is an opportunity to speak to the governing board about a school district matter that's not on the agenda. Please submit a request to address the board form to participate in the call to the public. If you want the governing board to consider adding an item to a future agenda, you may submit your request in writing to the board at least 5 working days before that meeting. The superintendent or the governing board president will consider your request. Thank you for your attendance and involvement in tonight's meeting.
Oh, are there seats? There are a few seats in the front. If those standing in the back would like to come up, I can see that there's at least 6 up here and maybe more. So if you feel like you want to sit down, you're welcome to come up. Thank you. It was. To move on to item number 4, and this is what you're all waiting for. This is the best part of the evening, our recognitions. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I really wanted to get to that. We're not ready yet, but these will go quickly. So we're going to review the review of agenda. Would anyone like to pull any items on the consent agenda?
Madam President, I would like to discuss some items on the consent agenda. And not necessarily pull them, but I'd like to make some comments or ask a question.
Yeah, in order to do that, we'll need to pull the item,
Okay?
then approve the consent agenda without those items, and then we can speak to each of those that you requested to pull.
It would be letters C, D, E, F, H, J, and K together, and then M.
Anyone else have any? Okay. So what I need is a motion for all consent agenda items, with the exception of those. When we get down to it, right? Yes. Yes. Okay. So with that, anything else that needs to be?
Mrs. Minor, did you identify which ones will be pulled here?
C, D, E, F, H, J, K, and M.
Okay.
All right. So now we will go to the governing board calendar.
President Minor, members of the board, thank you for the moment here to review our calendar for the next couple of months. And so we're on the 11th with a study session and governing board meeting. Tomorrow morning, we are having the Mesa Public Schools Foundation Business Breakfast. And I have Mrs. Hutchinson and Mrs. Richardson attending that event over at Westwood. And then
I'm actually not going. Are you going? And you are going, Stephen, right?
Mr. Peterson? Okay. Thank you.
And Dr. Lesser?
Yes.
At 8:30?
That begins at 8:30. Then next Monday is President's Day. There is no school next Monday. Yeah, they almost wanted to clap for that, and most of the ones clapping were the teachers right down here in front. Okay. On the 18th, we have the Mesa Citizens of the Year Awards ceremony, and that is at 5:30 p.m. at the Mesa Hilton. And I have Mrs. Richardson, Mrs. Hutchinson, Mrs. Sears, and Mr. Peterson attending that.
I will be out of town, will not be able to.
Okay? Then moving into the week of the 24th, we have a study session and governing board meeting on February 25th. We have an activity at Rhodes Junior High on the 27th that I'd like to just give all of you notice of. It is Keno's Avid National Demonstration Validation Visit. They have been working diligently on putting together all of the pieces of their visit to earn national demonstration status from Avid. And I believe Mrs. Mann, you'll be there, and I'll look to try to spend a little bit of time there. Just wanted to let all of you know that if you wish to stop by and participate, that would be fantastic. As I move...
8:15, do you know how long it lasts?
There are two. Sorry. This is Minor. There are two sections. So the morning is visiting the classrooms, and then the afternoon session will be a debrief with the administration and the teachers that were reviewed during the visit.
On March 2nd, we have the District Science and Engineering Awards Ceremony out at Skyline High School. I will be attending that event, and we'd like to have a board member or two, if you wish, to attend. That is on March 2nd at 5 p.m. at Skyline High School. It is the District Science and Engineering Fair Award Ceremony. I will be attending, and it would be great if one of the board members is available to attend. Kiana, Mrs. Sears, all right. Mrs. Minor, would you like to also attend? Sure. Okay. Before that time, I may reach out to one of you. They always ask us if one of the board members would like to make this a speaking engagement. So, one of you should expect a phone call from me. Fair notice. Let's see, on March 4th, just a heads up, and we will give you more information as we approach that time. A 5:30 board meeting where you will receive stakeholder feedback as a result of the stakeholder sessions that we'll be holding during the last week of February for the superintendent search. But we'll make sure to give you notice on that, so you know to put it on your calendar. Then, of course, the week of March 9th is spring break. That got a little bit more than just one day off, didn't it? Yeah, I like that. Then moving down to the week of the 23rd, we are invited to the Mamma Mia VIP dinner at Red Mountain. And Mrs. Minor, I believe that's date night with you and your husband. You'll be attending that. Is there any other board member that would like to attend that performance, the Mamma Mia VIP dinner theater?
I said I would do it too.
Okay. Are you going to go solo or?
Oh, we'll make it a date night.
Okay, perfect.
This will be my Valentine's dinner, I have a feeling.
And Mr. Peterson, would you like to attend as well?
I would.
Okay. Wow. Are you bringing a date as well? I mean, your wife?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That didn't sound very good, did it?
I get lots of brownie points on these.
All
Yes.
right. Fantastic. I want to say that on March 27th, this is another important date from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m., where the superintendent search firm will be bringing back information to the board during a board meeting to discuss the finalists for the superintendent search. And I'll talk more about that during my superintendent's update. And then lastly, I have one more item to share with you, and that is April 2nd. It is the Mesa Public Schools Foundation auction. It starts at 6 p.m. at Mesa Country Club. So you may want to get that on your calendar so we can all be there to celebrate the Mesa Public Schools Foundation event.
There is one more, I think, at least I have it on my calendar,
Okay.
that there's an East Valley School Board Consortium on the 30th of March. Just as a reminder, it's a fifth Monday. I'm not sure where that is this time. I haven't heard.
Well, we will make sure that we have that information, and we'll email it out to all of you, the time, location, and get that information to you. Any more questions on the calendar? Excellent.
So now we can go to recognitions, right, everyone?
The consortium is at Queen Creek volunteered last time.
Okay, good. Put it down.
Pete, can you invite me to date night?
Let me make sure I get it on the camp. Boy, this is going to be a big event. I added you.
Okay.
All right, fantastic. Mrs. Minor, it sounds as if, did you move down to the school spotlights?
Yep.
All right, so Madam President and board members, please join me down in front of the dais for this evening's recognitions. Good evening to all of you, and thanks for spending a little bit of time with us this evening. I'd like to ask Mrs. Arlinda Mann, the Dobson Westwood Area Assistant Superintendent, to please come to the podium to introduce her spotlight recognitions.
Thank you, Dr. Lesser. Our spotlight recognitions give our community a deeper look at how our schools and departments inspire students. I am honored to introduce the spotlight recognition of the evening, which is Serene Elementary School. Will Principal John Trezise please come forward?
I am John Trezise, proud principal of Sidewinder Nation here at Serene Elementary School. Serene is a comprehensive elementary school where caring professional teachers and staff show up every day to provide the highest level of education for the community. Serene is a STEM-themed school where teachers at every grade level provide opportunities for students to learn through a project-based learning model that highlights collaboration. We also have a makerspace where students have the ability to go and plan, design, and solve problems or create new innovative ideas and watch them come to life there. In addition to that, all of our students attend a coding class each week. We have partnered with Arizona State University and we are hosting the Teacher Associate Program where we have phenomenal lead teachers who have 3 teacher associates assigned to them where they are learning and working simultaneously. The staff here is tremendous. They are professionals that truly are caring and concerned about our students and doing the best thing for them. The students here are incredible. They keep you laughing, they work hard, they show up every day, and they persist. And we really, really are proud of their efforts here. Thank you, Mrs. Mann. Serene Elementary is a STEM-themed school where students develop higher-order thinking and collaboration skills in project-based learning environments. In addition, our diverse extracurricular activities align with students' personal interests and foster social learning. Kelly Tran, 5th grader, please come down and join me at the podium. From day one at Serene, Kelly has impressed teachers with her academic abilities, attention to detail, and amazing work ethic. She participates in Gifted and Talented, along with orchestra, all while maintaining straight A's. Most admirable, her kindness to others is always on display. I am honored to recognize you, Kelly, as our outstanding student. Just take a big step to the right, and we're going to celebrate another member of our community. Melissa Branch, 5th grade teacher, please come join me at the podium. Melissa makes a difference in students' lives every day. She cares deeply and works passionately to ensure their success. A campus leader, Melissa is collaborative and involved in all school initiatives. Her fun personality, big smile, and dedication to her career are appreciated by all. I'm honored to recognize you, Melissa, as our outstanding educator who makes a difference. All right, why don't you take a step over, guys. We have one more special member of our community to recognize, Arlene Ray, crossing guard and playground aide. Please come down and join us. Arlene is simply wonderful. As a crossing guard, she's diligent with her responsibility of ensuring students' safety while arriving and leaving school every day. As a playground aide, she provides students with well-supervised, appropriate play opportunities. She's fair, friendly, and well-liked by all. I am honored to recognize you, Arlene, as our customer service champion. Thank you. Thank you for shining a spotlight on our Serene community.
Congratulations, Serene. If you are here as a staff member or a family member supporting the Serene community, could you please stand and be recognized? Will Dr. David McNeil, Mesa Mountain View Area Assistant Superintendent, please come to the podium for our next spotlight?
Good evening. Our next spotlight recognition of the evening is Wilson Elementary School. Will proud principal Dr. Laura Victor please come to the podium?
I am the proud principal of Wilson Elementary School, and Wilson Elementary School is an amazing place to have students grow and learn. There's an amazing group of staff that are dedicated to helping students learn because we believe every child needs to reach his or her full potential. We have an amazing group of students. They're dedicated, they come to school, they care, they have smiles on their faces, they love what they do, they love learning. Our staff has high expectations for each student, and they work hard to make sure that we meet the needs of every learner in unique and different ways. Wilson is very proud of WEN, and that's our news crew, and we are so proud of WEN. They film the announcements that are shown every Friday. Students dictate what's on there, and it is such an amazing opportunity for students to be part of that. Social emotional learning is critical to a child's success in addition to academics because students need to learn how to advocate for themselves. We have keys for success are respect, responsibility, kindness, and grit. And keys for success help our students use common language to help motivate us and drive us and make decisions as we go through our day. The school has been named after Marilyn Wilson, who is a former Mesa Public School board member, and it is so wonderful to have that connection with somebody who is such an integral part of what we do every day.
Thank you, Dr. McNeil. I'd like to begin by recognizing Mrs. Marilyn Wilson. Could you please stand? When you walk onto the Marilyn T. Wilson campus, you know you've arrived at a school dedicated to the well-being and education of every student. Our staff, parents, and community are devoted to ensuring our students are successful in life and learning. Jimena Garcia, 6th grader, please join me at the podium. Jimena is a leader in the classroom and throughout campus. She excels academically and has the kind of growth mindset we all hope to achieve. A student council member, Jimena is involved in many school and community projects. She is selfless, patient, and a kind role model to students of all ages. I am honored to recognize you, Jimena, as our outstanding student. Bruce Scott, volunteer, please join me at the podium. For the past 3 years, Bruce has dedicated countless hours to our students. He supports them in every possible way, whether it's working with children individually and in small groups or assisting classroom teachers with tasks. His unwavering devotion makes him a treasure on our campus. I am honored to recognize you, Bruce, as our volunteer extraordinaire.
Thank you.
Pam Klassen, 2nd grade teacher, please join me at the podium. Pam has been at Wilson since the beginning. She makes our school an amazing place with an outstanding reputation. Pam is a voice of reason and a helpful friend. She is a valued mentor and always there when you need her. Her love and compassion for all students is inspirational. I am honored to recognize you, Pam, as our educator who makes a difference. Peggy Rodemeyer, secretary to the principal, please join me at the podium. Peggy is the heart and soul of our school. She warmly greets students, staff, and parents each day with her caring smile. Her knowledge is invaluable, and her ability to make everyone feel like family is immeasurable. Her importance cannot be expressed in words. She is Wilson. I am honored to recognize you, Peggy, as our customer service champion. Thank you for letting us share the great things happening at Wilson Elementary.
Good job. Shake their hands, too, okay? Nice job. Good job. Nice job. Leave it. I can assure you there's great people and great things happen at Wilson Elementary School. I know a lot of them personally, so yay. Good job, Wilson. Hey, if you're here from the Wilson community, either as a family member, staff member, please stand and be recognized because you're part of the Wilson team. Yay. Yay. Good job. Thank you. All right. Will Teresa Baca, Executive Director of Special Education, please come to the podium for our next recognition?
Our final spotlight of the evening is on Red Mountain Center for Early Education, also known as the happiest place in Mesa. Will Dr. Kathy Eustace, principal, please join me at the front while we watch a short video about your school.
Hi, I'm Kathy Eustace, proud principal of Red Mountain Center for Early Education. Red Mountain Center is a campus dedicated to preschool children with disabilities aged 3 to 5. Early intervention is at the heart of what we do at Red Mountain Center. Our mission is to provide a developmentally appropriate educational environment that builds each student's foundation for learning. We are committed to providing every student with an excellent early childhood experience. I'm so proud of Red Mountain Center because we have a place for every student at our school, regardless of their ability. Our staff at Red Mountain Center is dedicated to meet every need a child has on this campus. I come to work every day confident that we are doing fabulous things for children and their families because their teachers and support staff treat them with great respect. Our biggest job initially is to teach children how to be a student. We intentionally create a caring and welcoming environment where students are greeted daily by name in a warm, caring, safe learning environment where they feel welcome and loved. Every experience in early childhood is an opportunity for our students to learn through play. Play is the work of the young child, so we really focus on being developmentally appropriate in the practices we use in our classrooms. Our students gain the foundation for learning through play. These experiences are in a smaller class setting with lower student-teacher ratio in order to provide increased individualized instruction to our preschoolers with special needs. In addition to a developmentally appropriate curriculum, our students are learning to know what it's like to be a student, how to follow routines, how to follow behavioral expectations, so when they enter kindergarten, they are ready to learn.
I am.
Hang on a second here. I think it's that one, is it?
It is. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lesser. Thank you, Dr. Lesser. Thanks, Teresa. Early intervention is really at the heart of what we do at Red Mountain Center for Early Education. Our mission is to provide developmentally appropriate educational environment that builds each student's foundation for learning. And we expect that all children feel loved every day that they come to school with us. Ella Bradley, preschool student, please join me at the podium. Ella's smile lights up our campus. Just look at it. When she first came to Red Mountain Center in August 2018, she was not walking independently. Since then, she's worked diligently and now walks throughout our campus without any assistance. Her positive attitude, determination, and love of life inspires all of us. I'm honored to recognize you, Ella, as our outstanding student. Thanks for helping. Sharon Starr Atkinson, early childhood special education teacher, please join me at the podium. Gotcha. Sharon is a model of excellence and dedication to her craft. She happily serves as a mentor to new teachers, helps them with everything from using our student database to demonstrating evidence-based strategies for teaching. She recently completed the journey of national board certification, and we are so proud of her. I'm honored to recognize you, Sharon, as our educator who makes a difference. Vanya Flores, Secretary, please join me at the podium. Vanya brightens our campus and never hesitates when it comes to helping others. She works tirelessly to ensure our students have everything they need to be successful. She's dedicated, loyal, and one of the kindest hearts I've ever known. We're lucky and grateful to have her on our team, and I'm honored to recognize you, Vanya, as our customer service champion.
If you are here to support Red Mountain Center for Early Childhood Education, please stand.
Well, those are just 3 incredible examples of schools with caring, loving teachers and community members that are, just really appreciative of the work that is done. And so, from all of us to all of you, I'd like to thank you. It takes an army to create incredible work at our schools, and you're also very important to that process. It's also a little fun up here to watch people as they walk up this way when they've been fooled about why they are here today. Sharon. Well, let me tell you a little bit about what the recipients receive. A certificate of appreciation and a car window cling that celebrates their accomplishment, and an Amazon gift card for personal use from the Mesa Public Schools Foundation. Our Mesa Public Schools Foundation is a great supporter of our students and schools. With us tonight is Foundation Board Member Marilyn Wilson. Marilyn? Now, I've known Marilyn for a few years, and I would tell you that she is just a long-standing member of our community, very involved in the work that we do. She was a board member for many years, and of course, Wilson Elementary is her namesake. So we appreciate not only what she's done in the past, but your continued work with Mesa Public Schools and the Mesa community. Thank you, Marilyn. Now, Madam President and board members, this concludes our recognitions for this evening. Honorees and guests, you are welcome to move to the lobby to receive congratulations and take photos. And the board will now proceed with the rest of our meeting. Thank you, and have a good evening.
as it quiets down a little bit and we have most of the families out doing their congratulations and hugging, we appreciate all of them coming. We'll move on to the number 5, which is the proclamation. 5A, proclamation on National Public School Week. And Dr. Lesser, was there anything before we read that you'd like to say?
Madam President, which item is that on the agenda?
Number 5.
Well, what we'd like to do is have the board acknowledge February 24th through February 28th as Public Schools Week. And we have a proclamation that we would like you to read and approve as our proclamation for Public Schools Week.
That's great. I'm in great support of this. I believe in public school education. We see a great example in Mesa Public Schools. So with that, I've asked Board Member Peterson to read the proclamation, unless there's anyone else who'd like to make comment on it. Okay.
Whereas Mesa Public Schools provides opportunities for more than 63,000 students who are learning and growing inside our school buildings. Whereas public schools welcome every child, regardless of ability, race, age, country of origin, or needs. Whereas every student in Mesa Public Schools is known by name, served by strength and need, and graduates ready for college, career, and community. Whereas supporting public schools today will build a stronger economy and workforce of tomorrow. Whereas public schools are more successful when parents and family members participate in their children's education by supporting the learning at home, volunteering at school, and advocating for public education in the community. The Governing Board and Superintendent of Mesa Public Schools do hereby proclaim February 24th through the 28th as Public Schools Week. We encourage the community to join the district in recognizing public schools as the centerpieces of the hopes and dreams of our families and the growth and well-being of our communities. We further recognize that teachers, principals, educators, and support staff who serve in our public schools are key to helping our student success and our nation thrive.
Thank you. Now, do I hear a motion to adopt this proclamation?
Madam President, I move the approval of a proclamation recognizing February 24th through 28th, 2020 as National Public Schools Week.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now we're going to move on to item number 6, the consent agenda. All items listed will be considered as a group and will be approved with one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered as a separate item. Now, I know we've had some that we will be pulling, so we need a motion for those that we are not pulling. So do you want me to repeat which ones are being pulled? Do you? Okay, great.
I move that we approve the consent agenda items with the exception of items C, D, E, F, H, J, K, and M.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any? Okay, so we'll start with those items that you wanted to have questions about or talk about. Go ahead.
I see we've got members of the curriculum folks here. So I have 3 questions. And first of all, who was involved in the development of the curriculum, the new science curriculum? And could you tell us briefly how it's different from the previous one we had? And perhaps how does it align with Portrait of a Graduate?
Dr. Forlis, would you like to take this or hand it off to one of those guys? They're kind of looking at us going, uh-oh.
Yeah, they're ready to quiz me right now, right? So it is my honor to share this conversation with Dr. Eastlis, Dr. Enright, Corinne Forbes, Bree Rivera, and Tish Bourne, who have worked tirelessly with teachers on these documents. So I will hand it over to you all.
Tracy, you want to come up and talk at the microphone so we can...
As they're preparing, it's the backdrop of this is that in 2018, the Arizona Board of Education adopted new science standards. And it is the task of school districts to align our curriculum documents to the new standards. So the goal is that all of the K-12 standards are fully implemented by 2022. There is a transition plan that began in 2019-20. So we are right in step with what the state expects. And so that's a heavy lift from this amazing team. So from there, you can take it away.
If I can just interrupt for a second here, I have some mental telepathy with our general counsel, and it is most appropriate at this time to make a motion on the item, then open it up for discussion, and then take a vote on it.
Okay, so we're going to do one item at a time.
That's correct. So we need a motion on item number C.
Okay, do I hear a motion for C?
I move that we approve item C, the course curriculum.
Now we can have discussion.
All right. Good evening, Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Lesser. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to explain. We are super excited about the transition. As Dr. Forlis mentioned, by the end of the school year 21-22, that'll be the first year that we will have full implementation of all of the K-12 science standards with the new assessment to align to that work. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the alignment to the portrait of the graduate, but first I want to introduce you to our secondary science specialist, Bree Rivera, who comes to us formerly from the State Department, so has been instrumental in the work across the state with the new science standards, as well as the work that we've done with our teachers and leaders here in the district, as well as our curriculum community advisory panel that has brought this recommendation tonight for approval. Bree.
Madam President, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak. What is really different about our new standards compared to the standards that we have had since 2004 is that the entire vision is to have students doing science in the classroom. The standards were written with a resource book called A Framework for K-12 Science Education, and it incorporates the 3 dimensions of science. Our standards are 3-dimensional, meaning that they start with a science and engineering practice. So the standard will say in the beginning, students will ask questions about, or they will develop models about. So it's a very hands-on approach. First thing that the standard talks about is students doing science. Then it will go into the content that they should be learning, followed by a cross-cutting concept that they're going to need to be able to create a framework in their brain and a way to connect different science concepts together so that they remember them. There is less vocabulary, less standards in general so that teachers can go deeper with every standard. And it is just allowing students to focus on the science concepts that are important for transfer when they go on into college and career.
I have, I understand it was a unanimous vote from the Curriculum Advisory Committee. They were very excited about it and very supportive. The only question they had was, will we be able to provide our teachers with the resources that are necessary to make this as successful as the curriculum is?
That is a really good question. We currently have different groups of teams working on finding resources and developing resources. It is, we do have unique standards in Arizona, so we can, because Next Generation Science Standards used a framework for K-12 science education to write their standards, and so did we. We have some standards that can match up, and then we have our very unique standards. So we have teams in biology, in integrated science, chemistry, 7th grade and 8th grade, and then the ladies behind me are working with K-6, and we're finding and developing resources for the standards.
Okay.
And how were teachers involved in developing the curriculum?
Yes. So at the very beginning, I'll start with high school first. It was really important to get the teachers' input on how they wanted to have the course sequencing. We now have we have 28 essential standards that are required by 11th grade. And that causes a unique situation that we haven't had, because that requires us to teach biology, physics, chemistry, and earth and space in 2.75 years. So we had to figure out how are we going to cover all these different topics in our traditional courses. We also were very careful not to get rid of all of the electives that the teachers have worked really hard for, because if we set a course that allowed for just having the 3 credits that they need, we take away our student choice. So we were very careful in deciding what standards go in which course to keep the student choice alive. So we had 5 meetings last year where the teachers took all of the standards and they adopted them into their courses. After that, we started working on the curricular guides and sequencing out the standards. What should be taught first or second? Again, it is a suggestion. It is not a mandate that they teach them in this order, but it is at least a starting point. Then we took each standard and we identified the 3 dimensions in the standard. What is the science and engineering practice, and what is that science and engineering practice asking in this standard? What is the content that the students need to know, and what are the cross-cutting concepts? Finally, in the end, you can see our evidence of learning statements, and we wrote out what it looks like for a student to have mastered the standard. All teacher work.
Thanks very much for explaining it, because I think it's all really important for us to understand where we're headed with science education, and this is really important stuff. Thank you so much for being so detailed in your explanation, and yet understandable. So thank you.
Good, I'm glad.
And hopefully and hopefully there won't be any issues with resources. We'll kind of follow up on that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments before we have a vote? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Very good. Do I hear a motion for D?
Madam President, I move that we approve letter D, grant request, community education.
Comments?
I just want to make a comment. I think this is a real kudos to the community education department. This grant money that they're asking for they've been serving 425 adults. These are adults that are trying to get their GED, they're trying to get citizenship, they're trying to learn the English language. I think this is just an amazing extension of community ed. It really defines community ed, and it's a great way to serve the community. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody realized that community ed is doing great work in our community.
Mrs. Hollins supervises that area for us. Any additional thoughts that you may have for Mrs. Hutchinson?
Thank you very much for recognizing the important service that is provided to our community through community ed, and in particular the adult education program. You may recall several status reports ago I included 2 videos about 2 families that had gone through that program and the success that they had seen and how they are now contributing members to their community. So thank you very much for that support.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, item number E. Do I hear letter E? Do I hear a motion?
I would like to move the approval of letter E, grant request, Rhodes Junior High.
Any questions or discussion?
Can I ask a question of, I don't know if maybe...
It would be Dr. Forless on this topic?
It talks about furniture and new innovations in furniture. Can I ask, was this furniture selected by the students and staff at Rhodes?
You know, that's a really great question. This is a grant proposal. We have not received the funds yet, so this is a proposal. And so if approved, my heart tells me that Mrs. Patty Christie, the principal at Rhodes, will ensure that staff and students are part of the decision.
I tried to read the fine print of all of that, and I got the impression that it was one room they were going to work on, because it was $82,000 or something like that for the room. And does that mean they're going to choose some kind of symbol of what they would like seeing moving forward for other rooms? Are they having a specific type of room? How would that look? Or they even thought about that yet?
Madam President, the initial conversations have been around retrofitting the library space. And so with that, it's not just furniture, so it's about the $80,000 for furniture, but that also includes about $50,000 in professional learning, because we know that furniture alone doesn't create a different learning experience. So we have to make sure that the instructional design is incorporated within the furniture that they choose, and that flexible seating for children. So they may have moved away from that idea, but the original concept included the library.
That'd be so great if they got that grant, especially for that library.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, work hard at it. Any other questions or comments on this item? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Dr. Forlis, for that. Letter F, do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the intergovernmental agreement with MPLS and Santa Cruz Elementary School District, Little Red School.
Any comments or questions on this item?
The question I have is that since I've been on the board, it seems like almost every meeting we enter an intergovernmental agreement with another school district providing our Mesa distance learning program to others. And I don't know how many it's been, but we are a leader in distance learning. And I would just like to sing the praises of this program, because we're providing educational opportunities to kids who otherwise wouldn't have them.
The MDLP program has been a stellar program for many, many years in Mesa Public Schools, and we have reached out to many communities in agreements for them to use what we've developed for Mesa distance learning. I think Dr. Forlis can speak a little more specifically. I don't know if you have numbers of how many school districts and entities we work with.
Thank you, Dr. Lesser. And Madam President, Jennifer Eccles, our Director of Mesa Distance Learning and Personalized Learning, does an amazing job continuing to refine the program offerings as well as the instructional design of her courses. We have over 20, we partner with over 20 different districts and or schools to provide MDLP services to districts and individual schools that are not yet able to do that on their own. Dr. Eastlis might have more exact numbers, but I know that it is over 20. This particular agreement is with a K-8 school in Santa Cruz County in Nogales. So this will be providing online distance learning for 7th and 8th graders. This helps our rural school districts that perhaps can't find a teacher in the content area. And so it really is about equity and access. And I hope I don't jinx this, but MDLP is in the final stages of a proposal to provide distance learning for the second largest school district in the state, Tucson Unified.
You know, this department that Mrs. Eccles runs or looks over or oversees has evolved so much. I remember many years ago, and maybe Marilyn Wilson does too, I don't know if it was there then, but Doug Barnard was involved with, I believe, the beginning stages of that, because that was when online learning was just starting out, and he was working on that.
Really a pioneer in the industry. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and it has evolved, and you guys are doing a great job. Shout out to Jennifer Eccles for what she does. Yes, she works hard.
Well-deserved.
She's really good. So please pass that on to her. Okay, so we already have a motion, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so you have three that are together that you'd like to talk about at the same time, and That's H, J, and K. So
We really need to do
still need to do them separately.
each one separately.
Okay, so we're going to do H first. So do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve letter H, the purchasing contract increase for architect and engineering services.
Any questions or comments?
I just wanted to comment that this is because of bond money that the community passed, and that these services are needed because our citizens saw the need to create learning environments where our kids can thrive.
Mr. Thompson can also add and respond to that as well.
Yeah, I would remind the governing board that at the beginning of November, we brought forward an informational item with the general idea of the work that was to be done, and what you're seeing this evening is the fruits of that labor. But the important part is to highlight that these things, while we brought that forward as information, they always come back to you for finalization. So we're guesstimating at the beginning about costs and scope and a lot of those things, and ultimately we bring it back to you for final approval as we move through each one of these pieces. In this particular case, it's the architecture and engineering firms that are involved in that early design work that we need to increase the contract for slightly, and then some of the others are more specific to the projects that we're doing as a result of our taxpayer support.
Okay, anything else? Appreciate that, Scott. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, and then item J, do I hear a motion?
I would like to move approval of item J, purchasing contract award for JOC contracting.
Any questions or discussion?
If I could ask Mr. Thompson a question. Are these the ceiling tiles and the learning environment becoming brighter at Shepherd? Is that a result of our work with the master plan?
Honestly, this is not yet. The master plan you'll be seeing actually at our next meeting, and this is still work that has been continuing to be identified by our staff, and a lot of these have come through actually by school request. So sometimes we will get a work order to fix something, and we quickly realize it's a bigger project than a small fix. So the projects you have before you and the projects you saw back in November, I would not. We've had an eye towards where the master plan was going the best we could, but we also wanted to get some work done this summer. And obviously, if we started in February, we're having a hard time getting the work done, having looked at these projects back in November, just because of the scope of time to get engineers and contractors bid, and you know how our processes take a while. So we had to get started. These are not specific to the master plan, but certainly have an eye towards the information we were getting as we looked at the master plan and tried to move forward with some summer projects. And I feel comfortable these are still within the scope of things that we would want to get done in improving the learning environments, which is going to be the focus of our master plan, right?
Questions or comments? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, K, do I hear a motion for item K?
Madam President, I'd like to move for approval of letter K, purchasing contract increase on gymnasium equipment and bleachers.
Any discussion or questions?
I have a quick question, and the question is, it talks about repairing and replacing the seating. Is that our own people who are doing the repairing and replacing?
No, these will be replaced by a company that's...
This is the company?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this will be a full refresh of the equipment and seating and everything involved, because most often is the case, after years of bleachers being pulled in and pulled out, they don't do that very well anymore, so you just really start from scratch.
Yeah, because I was when I read the content, it said for pending projects for the construction department to repair and replace. So I didn't know if it was our own people doing it or not.
Just probably, the English teacher probably should have seen that and and looked at that. I think it's just poorly worded. But you are correct, that it would read that way, but it meant the construction department is in the process of getting a firm to repair and replace the equipment. Thank you.
Okay, if nothing else, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And final item M, do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve item M, the student field trip MacArthur Elementary School to Grand Canyon and Arizona.
Any comments, questions, or discussion?
And I ask that you direct them toward Dr. McNeil, who supervises that area.
Great, thank you, Dr. McNeil. And first of all, I want to apologize for delaying the consent agenda like this, sorry. I'll do this a different way next time. But I'm concerned about a $145 trip. And I guess I have to ask the question, being new to the board, what if a child cannot afford the $145 for the trip?
Madam President, Ms. Hutchinson, Dr. Lester, that's a great question. In talking in length with Principal Norris over there, every student gets an opportunity to go depending on the cost. With respect to the cost, in order to minimize the cost, they did not make it a stay overnight, a 2-day trip, thus increasing more than the 1-day allotment for that. We have 116 people going to the Grand Canyon, and many of those are chaperones, 33 of the 116. Included in the package, it's a long, long day. They leave at 5 in the morning and they come home at 9.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, I'm back. So to be fiscally conservative, they did not make it a stay overnight. And they are doing a 1-day, but breakfast and dinner are included in that. So if you're looking at feeding 116 people 2 meals a day, as well as the amazing things that they're going to do during the day that are of course tied to the standards with respect to weather, climates, adaptations, earth systems, as well as the cultures of America. This is a really cool trip. And the people that are going on this, the students as well as the parents, are going to learn a lot. In talking with Mr. Norris too, the follow-up activities tied to the social studies will be amazing as well. So although it looks very expensive, they were actually trying to be more fiscally responsible instead of staying the night.
I totally get that. I did some work at the Grand Canyon educationally myself, but my question is, what if the kid can't afford to go on this amazing trip? Does every kid get to go, even if they can't afford it?
Yeah, Ms. Hutchinson, I would have to assume that I don't know if that's the case, but moving forward, if there is somebody, I know that there are alternatives through scholarships, as well as my department, to make sure that we're making sure that all kids get the opportunity of going.
Mrs. Hutchinson, and I might add to that, and I know that Arlinda can add to it as well, our schools work diligently to ensure that all students have the equity of opportunity regardless of their personal circumstance and the resources that they have. Our schools have ECA money donated from a variety of homes and individuals, and if students do not have the resources, we will find the resources for them to attend. And if you ever hear that is a roadblock to a youngster, then we absolutely need to know so we can intervene in that process. Mrs. Mann, anything to add regarding?
A lot of times our students have the opportunity to fundraise, and one of the reasons that they ask for permission to go in February and the trip is not until May is so that the students have an opportunity to fundraise, but they can't start that fundraiser until the trip is approved.
Okay, if there isn't any other questions, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Marcy. Now we will move on to action items, starting with the minutes of a study session meeting held on January 28th, 2020. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of the study session meeting held on January 28th, 2020.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, B, minutes of a regular meeting including an executive session held on January 28th, 2020. Do I hear a motion?
Move that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting and executive session held on January 28th, 2020.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, C, administrative, certificated, and classified personnel requests, including an addendum. Dr. Holmes.
Madam President, members of the board,
Has that gotten longer?
it has. I actually,
longer.
I have to tell you, I'm looking at it this evening, and I think I'm going to change the title. So that's
Okay.
coming. Madam President, members of the board, we're asking your approval this evening of the administrative, certificated, and classified personnel requests, including an addendum.
Do I hear, are there any questions or any comments? First, I should have a motion.
Correct.
I move that we approve the administrative, certificated, and classified personnel requests, including an addendum.
Now, are there any questions or comments? Okay, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So the next one is the superintendent's item D, superintendent's executive team compensation audit. And we do have one person that wanted to speak to this, but we will start with Dr. Lesser.
Madam President, members of the board, before we move on to agenda items, Superintendent's Executive Team Compensation Audit and the Superintendent's Executive Team 2019-20 Compensation Recommendations, I would like to share with our constituents the work that has been done by the governing board that brings us to these items today. In late October, an employee contacted a board member expressing concerns about 2019-20 Superintendent's Executive Team compensation. The board member was surprised by the numbers that were shared, which to her recollection were significantly higher than the prior year. Prior to this time, the previous superintendent informed the governing board that compensation for the superintendent's executive team and the leadership team reorganization was budget and position neutral, meaning there would be no additional cost to the district. The governing board moved to address the compensation and cost concerns brought to their attention immediately, holding multiple executive sessions, some of which included the previous superintendent. The governing board directed the previous superintendent to have MPS Audit Services conduct an audit of any unapproved compensation for the superintendent's executive team. On December 2nd, the governing board accepted the resignation of the previous superintendent and approved my hiring as the interim. In the weeks following my hire, I met with the governing board in several executive sessions to discuss the superintendent's executive team compensation, progress of the compensation audit, and to receive legal advice regarding any unapproved compensation. The governing board then directed me to widen the scope of the compensation audit to include the cost of the superintendent's executive team for each year over a period of 6 years, including any positions added to the team over that same period of time. This summary brings us here today, where the superintendent's executive team compensation audit and the compensation recommendations appear on the agenda for the board's review and possible approval this evening. Now, with regards to item D, President Minor, members of the board, is specific to the superintendent's executive team compensation audit. The audit has 3 main conclusions. There is compensation for 10 members of the superintendent's executive team that has not come before you, the governing board, for approval. The number of superintendent's executive team members have increased from 13 to 15 from last year to this year. The third item, the cost to the superintendent's executive team increased from $2,068,000 to approximately $2,600,000 from last year to this year, which is an increase of approximately $550,000. Now, this increased cost to the executive team is the result of several factors. A 5% base salary compensation increase to the 13 members of the superintendent's executive team from last year, which was the same percent offered to every other administrator in the district, equates to about $92,000. The board previously approved $5,000 increases to 4 members of the executive team, equaling $20,000. 2 additional members were added to the team this year, coming to a cost of about $290,000. And base salary compensation based on the audit not yet approved by the governing board is approximately $140,000. The governing board and district have implemented 2 safeguards to properly address these findings. All compensation and employment recommendations are posted in board docs for review and approval by the governing board. Previously, compensation amounts were not included in employment recommendations to the board. And secondly, the superintendent will meet with the governing board to outline any changes to the superintendent's executive team and compensation, including a cost analysis, prior to governing board approval. Now, our work is not yet completed. The board and I will continue to review the organization of the superintendent's executive team for the 2021 school year, including appropriate number of appointed positions, job responsibilities, and compensation. Madam President, that is just a summary of the attached document of the compensation audit that I share with you tonight.
Do I hear a motion for item D, 7D?
I move that we approve the superintendent's executive team compensation audit.
Is there any discussion, questions, or comments from the board?
I think it's important, I'm thankful for this audit. I'm thankful for the things it showed us and made us very aware of so that we can know where we've been, what we need to improve and do better as we go forward. And we have a clear path for understanding what we need to do as a board in order to make sure we are being fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars. I also I want to always point out that while that is a huge change in what we spent in previous last year to this year, and I think you said $290,000 of it was about the addition of 2 new additional members to the
Approximately.
And for some of that, it was just a reclassification of money. That employee already worked for the district, so it's not brand new money. Is that a fair assessment of that?
Well, I think the challenge about assessing the 2 additional positions is if we move somebody into the superintendent's executive team and we didn't backfill their position, then it would be just the increased cost of additional compensation. But if we move somebody into the executive team and backfill their position, then that amount is an additional cost from the prior year.
Any other comments from board members? I appreciate the audit because it brought clarity. We requested this audit so we could understand further the intricacies of compensation as well as what occurred. It helped me learn a lot more about how that occurs, compensation, in particular this 2 months, now going into the 4th month because it took time. And with it, I want to let Ken Alexander, who's not here, oh, he is here. Let him know. I didn't even know. I'm not doing this because you're here in the room. I mean that we appreciate, at least I do, and I think the other board members do as well, all the time and work that you put into this and the important work that has been. There is one person in the room that asked to speak to this item, and that is Kathy Zinkon. I hope from Summit Academy. I hope I pronounced that. Okay, good.
Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Lesser, 2019-2020 SET, am I saying that right, or do you?
Superintendent's executive team.
Do you say SET or is it SET?
You can say either one of those.
Okay, I'll say SET.
All right.
MESA educators, students, families, and community members. My name is Kathy Zinkon, and I am a 10-year MESA employee. I wanted to address the board tonight regarding the SET compensation information provided by MESA's audit services, which I appreciate the work that you did, Mr. Alexander, I really do. As I was looking at all the numbers and the amounts of money on various pages, the chart on page 6 became the most interesting to me. This chart shows that the increase of total compensation for the SET members rose from $1,416,795 in 2015 to $2,619,555 in 2020. But the increase of total members of the SET only increased by 5 positions, from 10 to 15 over those same years. The total compensation for the SET increased almost 85% over those past 5 years. It increased $1,202,760, $1.2 million in 5 years. And if I'm not mistaken, these amounts do not include superintendent's total compensation, nor their perks or stipends or anything, just the team or the cabinet, as it has been recently called. This is money that is not going into our classrooms. This is not money that is reaching our students. As a preschool inclusion teacher who was told that there was not enough money this year to be able to provide a second instructional assistant in our classrooms full of 3 to 5-year-old students, half of whom who had special needs of varying disabilities. This is just another slap in the face and a punch to the gut. We had been assured for the past year that we would continue to this new program with 2 instructional assistants. Ms. Baca assured us. Dr. Holmes assured us. Ms. Miner, you were there during one of those meetings and hugged me assuringly after that meeting. Dr. Lesser, even you assured us that we would be appropriately supported in this program when you presented the new changes to the preschool program to the board in a study session in November of 2018. Let me just break it down for you. A 29-hour-a-week instructional assistant costs the district approximately $350 to $400 a week. No benefits. In our classroom, I have 17 students in the morning. I have 17 students in the afternoon. They are all 3 to 5-year-old children. One of my fellow colleagues, has 9 students in diapers that have to be changed throughout the sessions. We are struggling. We have begged for support. We have asked for additional adult support, instructional aids for our classrooms, but no one seems to care, and this report just proves it.
If I may.
Can I come back? Can I talk? Are you going to address me?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and respond. Thank you for your feedback, and maybe the first thing that I would say is that we do care, and I realize that as you share information with us today, you feel differently than that. With regards to preschool, we are really exploring ways to bring preschool more efficiently and effectively to our neighborhood schools. I don't believe that we are perfect at that at this time, but we are going to continue to head down that path to refine, revise, and work through some of these issues. So we are committed to that. We may not give the response or take the position that everybody may want to hear, but I guarantee you the people that are working on preschool are committed to that equity of opportunity for students in our neighborhood schools. And we're going to continue to work on that moving forward. I've been in several discussions already with members of the superintendency about what the appropriate times are, what is the appropriate distribution of instructional assistant resources, how does the school who has preschool, how are they able to support preschool differently moving forward? So we continue to brainstorm about solutions to the problems, the concerns, the challenges or frustrations that people bring forward, and we're committed to that. Now, to speak briefly about the audit. The audit was completed like every audit to bring a greater awareness to a concern that has been brought forward. And as several board members have shared, this audit does just that it brings forward information about changes, about compensation, maybe that hasn't been approved, changes in number of individuals in the executive team. Now, it's not this simple, but I would like to share just a basic run through of the numbers. Generally speaking, if the cabinet increased by 5 persons, and I'm not indicating to you that that's the right increase over a period of 5 years, should it be less, should it be more, I'm just speaking about the 5 individuals. If those 5 individuals make about $150,000 a year with their base compensation and the additional compensation that I've talked in a board meeting about before, that in itself is $750,000. If there is any increase in those individuals over a period of 5 years, a 2% raise, a 3% raise, a 5% raise. Well, that number clearly, simply from the numbers of what one executive team member costs the district, would equate to $1 million or $1.2 million. Now, the board is interested in what the number is, and as I shared in one of my earlier statements, that our work is not yet done, and that we will continue to review the number of people, the positions that they serve, the job responsibilities they have, and their compensation as they move into the new school year. There was one other thing that I was going to share with you. You know, it just slipped my mind. So my summary of that would be that response. And we're going to keep working on that information, and it's going to be helpful for us to make decisions moving down the road.
Dr. Lesser, could I respond for 30 seconds?
Certainly.
I appreciate what you said. I would ask that if your commitment to preschool is what you say, that you include preschool teachers within that group or that task force. As far as I'm aware, with my colleagues, I know of no teachers, no inclusion teachers that have been spoken to about these things. And then I appreciate you looking at the numbers and taking steps to move forward. What I would ask the board, my elected officials, would be to table these items, to really sit with those numbers, to do some math on a piece of paper. My dad was an accountant. I hope my numbers are a little correct. I hope. But just really sit with them. I don't know how long you've been looking at them. We just got, the public has just got them tonight or within the past 24 hours. If you would be so kind as to allow for the public, the community, the staff to sit with these numbers, to crunch these numbers, to look at this percentage of 85% increase. And I appreciate when you do math too. It's nice. Yes, those numbers add up to $1.2 million. However, $350 to $400 a week for an instructional assistant in my classroom to help me change diapers for my 3 to 5 year old children who have disabilities. I don't think that's too much to ask. And let's add those numbers up. For a year, that's approximately $14,000. No benefits. No benefits for those people. It's not going to cost you that much. Really think about it. And please consider, please really hear the voices. Not your MAA president, not your MEC or MAC or whatever your administrators. Really listen to the teachers, please, and maybe some instructional assistants. Please table these 2 items tonight and allow for the community to really process these numbers. That's what I'm asking the board.
I may just share a few additional words. If I have indicated to you that there is a task force exploring preschool, that would be incorrect, and I apologize for that. I would tell you that our team of administrators, along with Kathy Eustace and Kim Freehan, are regularly talking with Teresa Baca, with Tracy Eastlis, and Dr. Forlis, regarding preschool. And I know that they're reaching out to Kathy and having these conversations and getting her feedback on the work that we're doing. So I want to assure you, I want to assure you that we are reaching out to individuals. And Dr. Forlis, if we believe that we're missing a communication here with the group, then I would ask us as the leadership team to be sure that we reach out to all of the voices regarding preschool in our district.
Dr. Lesser.
And with regards to this particular audit, the request this evening is to approve the audit numbers conducted by our audit services department. And it is my request this evening to move forward with approving the finalized audit, as we have discussed the draft audit on a number of occasions.
Yes, I would just add that we have been looking at these numbers for several weeks, several hours. It is probably, there's not much else that, at least I can speak for myself, that I've been doing in the last few weeks. It is a complex process, and I know that sounds like just saying something to appease you. It is not. It is truly complex. This is a national issue. What you have just brought to us is a national issue that all school districts are dealing with. Funding is an issue. And you're right, when you look at those numbers, it feels like the amounts of money are going to the wrong places when you're in the classroom and you're hurting for those things. But from our perspective, where we see where the amounts of money go in a very complex budget, it makes sense why it does the way it does. And that's something that I'm sure somebody would sit down with you if you had many hours to go through it. And it doesn't take one time. Like you said, you'd only had an opportunity to look at it this evening or yesterday. It takes many times. It has taken me many times. Dr. Lesser started as a math teacher. I would consider him an expert at math. And he's spent many, even more hours than I did. And for me to get up to speed was tough. So I just want to say, and maybe I've said too much because I don't want to sound like I'm trying to make light of this. This is heavy for all of us. And we appreciate you and your passion, and we do care. We really care. We think about it. We do what we can about it all the time. And
Madam
I know.
President?
Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to clarify that what we're doing tonight is we're accepting the report that we agree that it's correct. It's not that we are happy with it and we're going to continue with what it's looking like. It's that we needed to know where we are, and that's the report we're accepting. It's not saying, okay, good, we're happy with this. We are here tonight having this conversation. The things our district has gone through is because our board is not happy with it. And that's why we're having this conversation. So the numbers you're seeing are numbers we have come to realize with, and we are looking, and that's the next action item. But this is to say, we believe this report to be correct. We understand where the numbers come from, and we appreciate it. So it's not a gloss over or an approval or trying to hide anything. It's being as transparent as we can be with here's the report of what we got that we were concerned about as a board. And that's what the motion is to approve.
And I'd like to add to Board Member Richardson's comments is that we've been in executive sessions more times than we've been in regular sessions. And we kept asking questions and more questions and more questions. And as a result, Mr. Alexander has worked tirelessly to answer our questions. We wanted to see what the numbers were, and now we have the numbers, and it's from real numbers, real facts. Now we can act. And this had to see the light of day because we were kept in the dark. Now we have some numbers and we can make some decisions. And I've been that teacher in the classroom who couldn't get the resources, who couldn't get a pay raise, so I feel what you're telling us. And I don't mean to say that, I was a colleague of yours. And I know that this type of budget stuff, it's mind-blowing. But we ask the questions so we can get to where the money needs to be.
Other comments?
You know, Mrs. Minor, I may just add one final thought here. And we want to be fiscally responsible with the resources that we have received from our community. I think it's important to remind our constituents that we are an organization that employs 10,000 employees, and we have 64,000 students. And this organization requires individuals to be able to lead the dozens of departments, to lead the mission and vision of the work that we do. And I believe that we're constantly reassessing where money is distributed, how much it is, what impact it does, and we continue to be committed to that as we sit before you today. Thank you.
Okay, with that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will move on to item 7E, Superintendent's Executive Team Compensation Recommendations. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the superintendent's executive team compensation recommendations.
Any further discussion, questions, or comments?
I just want to add, go ahead.
If I may just say a few introductory words, and then Mr. Peterson, I will defer to you. President Minor, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to share several thoughts on how the compensation audit has influenced my 2019-20 Superintendent's Executive Team compensation recommendations that appear on the agenda today for your review, possible motion, and approval. After meeting in several executive sessions to discuss the compensation concerns, which has included a thorough review of the compensation audit, as well as consultation with the governing board attorney, the governing board and I know that 2019-20 compensation for some SET members was not approved, and in some cases, amounts appear to be excessive. By statute, the governing board has the responsibility to oversee the district's budget, which clearly includes compensation for employees. They have the fiduciary responsibility to establish fair and reasonable compensation consistent with duties and previous organizational decisions, and to approve that compensation. As stewards of the district's resources and with advice from legal counsel, the governing board also feels that they have the responsibility to recoup dollars spent on unapproved compensation. The governing board has directed me to bring forward today a compensation recommendation for 2019-20 base salary compensation not yet approved by the board. As part of my recommendation, I have developed a recoupment plan for any compensation difference between what is presently being paid and what is approved by the governing board this evening. My recommendation, which includes some adjustments to current compensation, will lead to the recoupment of approximately $70,000 prior to the end of this school year. Although my recommendation will not be favorable for some of our leadership team, I want them to know that they are valued and appreciated, and their contributions make a positive difference in our organization. They make us better. I am confident that together we will continue to do great work for our students and community. As I said before, our work is not yet completed. The board and I will continue to review the organization of the superintendent's executive team for the 2021 school year, including appropriate number of appointed positions, job descriptions, job responsibilities, and compensation. With that summary, I turn it back to you, President Minor, and my request this evening is for you to approve the recommendation that appears in our agenda. And that recommendation identifies the 15 members of the executive team. It identifies the base salary compensation that I'm requesting you approve for all 15 members, some of which you have approved at a previous time. And then on the second page, or continuing beyond that, it talks a little bit about things that have already been approved for the superintendent's executive team, and then, of course, requesting your approval to develop a plan to recoup the difference in compensation from the amount presently being paid and the amount approved by you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lesser. Okay. For more than a century, Mesa Public Schools has always been a point of pride for our community. It's in our DNA. Our teachers, principals, staff, parents, and students have created a standard of academic excellence, and we proudly embrace that legacy. We understand that our partnership between the public and our schools is based upon a trust the board will approve expenditures and spend funds wisely. The past few months have not been easy, but I'm confident our school district will emerge stronger. Our governing board is strengthening our commitment to fiscal accountability and financial integrity. Let me walk you through some key steps. First, our community must know that our governing board did not have a full picture of the facts at the outset. That lack of information caused some unfortunate skepticism. It took some time for us to get the facts so we could make informed and accurate decisions. The board had been repeatedly informed that the 2019-20 Superintendent Executive Team Compensation and Reorganization Plan would not increase costs to the district. Now, after some extensive number crunching, we have verified that was not the case. We moved swiftly to address these concerns, though our due diligence required us to take more time than some would have liked. We directed our auditor to conduct a full-scale internal review of any unimproved compensation and raises of the superintendent executive team. As Dr. Lesser has outlined, we have put critical safeguards into place. We will begin immediately recouping unapproved administrative compensation, and our work is not done. Dr. Lesser will continue a comprehensive review that should result in more savings. One other note. Dr. Lesser has had a one-on-one meeting with all superintendent executive team members, including those who received unapproved compensation, and he has explained his recommendations to the board. These district leaders have been cooperative and understand the changes that will take place. In some cases, this could mean significantly reduced paychecks between now and the end of June. In no way is this a reflection on the great work they provide to the district. We are confident that they will continue to work hard for Mesa Public Schools and its students. We take any perceived violation of your trust to heart. We are stewards of the school district's resources, your taxpayer dollars. And we take that job very seriously, which is why the board is reaffirming its role as the final say on how district funds are used. This will not happen again. We will learn from this. We will grow from this, and we will continue to build the best school district in the state. Let me end by thanking Dr. Lesser and his team for working incredibly long hours. Again, I look to Ken Alexander in the audience. This included nights and weekends over the past several weeks. Their work will allow us to move forward with clarity, confidence, and purpose. Dr. Lesser, we are fortunate to have you leading our district through this challenging time. We appreciate you. Thank you. We have some other people who want to speak to this item. I believe Vicki Johnson, it says budget items and contracts. I'm assuming that is to this item.
It was one of the earlier items. I just had some questions for clarification.
Sure, come on up. I apologize, I wasn't sure if that was your.
I wasn't quite sure how to put it on there. It's my first time coming up and addressing you guys. But when we voted for bond money, I know a lot of us were looking for it to go directly into the classrooms. And I understand that working on the buildings and making sure that the maintenance is done is critical. But it's hard for me to look at these items and look at something like bleachers when our classrooms right now, our school is currently rationing paper. And that's very frustrating. And so I have read through the budget for the school several times, for the district, I guess I should say. But there's not like a spot that explains to us how schools are receiving their budgets. And I understand that each school has their own independence in kind of setting where that money goes. We're not a Title I school, which means that most of the families have plenty of resources to help enable it. I'm sending, on average, over $100 to classrooms a month, trying to help build resources. But that shouldn't be coming strictly out of our pockets just because there's more ability in these households. We should support the schools and we should be able to provide stuff. But the basic functioning needs of the school should be provided by the district regardless of the school. So that's where my struggle is coming in, and I'd like more clarity on how these budgets are set for these non-Title I schools, because I know there's very few of us.
Madam President, I think I'd like to have Mr. Thompson talk a little bit about, about bond money versus override money, so we make sure that we've clarified where those two different pots of money are used.
And I can address school allocation as well. So let's start with bond funds can only fund capital increases such as building improvements. They cannot go for any kind of supply or support of salaries for classrooms or any operational funding of the schools. What we call the maintenance and operations override, which is currently at 10%, and our voters approved in November a 5% increase for 15. That will actually increase some operational dollars, and the executive team of the district is working on next year's budget as we speak, but those dollars don't exist yet. So understand that even with the approval in November, we haven't seen the increase. We won't see that till July 1st. Now, putting those large pots of money aside and the taxpayer support, which we greatly appreciate in that area, what we do on a school basis is generally schools get their funds distributed on a student basis, and it is equal across all the schools. And that's actually also a federal requirement. So you mentioned Title I schools, for example, getting more. That is intentional, and that is required by the federal government, that the district needs to meet its obligation first. And that's why we use things like student formulas, because it's hard to determine like why one school receives $1 amount and the other receives a different dollar amount. How many students you have is kind of just a natural place to go and say, well, if you've got 800 kids, you're going to get X dollars, and if you have 600, you're going to get Y dollars. And then we add those Title I funds in addition to that for supplies. Now, to your very specific example of rationing of paper, a conversation near and dear to my heart. I've been in school districts for over 20 years. I've been here in Mesa for 3. And each school has its own culture and its own way of addressing the ultimate supplies that are provided. And what I would say to you is I think that it is obvious to us as we look through the budget and look through the spending of the schools that we feel that what we provide is adequate for the schools to accomplish their task for the year. But each principal has latitude on how they want to focus those funds. And so I don't know the school, I don't know the circumstances, but you can appreciate that we want them to be leaders in their school, and they're going to make choices about if they're not spending money on paper, they might be redirecting the dollars to something else. But I guarantee you that does not mean that they're receiving less dollars to support their schools or get the basic work that's done, that schools need to get done. So without getting into the specifics of the individual issue you brought up, I can say that that's a latitude that the schools have, that we've looked at it over time and feel that, the dollars are appropriate. And we'd have to get into the individual school to see what the circumstances are, why they might be rationing paper in February, because that obviously is a concern. I mean, we're not all the way through the school year, we're a little over half, and we're already rationing paper, but I don't know the details. So that's kind of how we get to these different pots of money, and that's how we get to, it gets down to the school level.
Mrs. Johnson, a couple of the things that we certainly are willing to do regarding your concerns is if you wanted to speak further with Mr. Thompson regarding the distribution of how bond money is used, which is really buildings and those types of things, and override money is maintenance and operation. It's really the money that goes to people that do the things in the buildings that we have. He'd be happy to sit with you and talk a little bit more about what that looks like. In addition to that, if you're willing to tell us what school you're at, we would be happy to collaborate with that principal to see if there's support we can provide to manage the resources or have that conversation. By the look on your face, you're not quite sure that you want to tell us where you work.
Well, no, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. At the same time,
I'm just extending the offer
in order to solve a problem, I'm not opposed to solving the problem. I love our principal, and I appreciate the autonomy that they get with their budgets, because I believe that gives them flexibility to do what they need for their schools. It's just difficult for that. So maybe privately, but not
absolutely. Yeah, you don't need to share it from your seat there. Dr. McNeil will get the information from you. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. And then Pat.
Yeah, we have comments.
Yes.
I also have another person that's waiting to speak, and that's Patrick Tucker.
Madam President, board members, first time I came and talked to you, I had some concerns about the budget. And you put me in touch with the folks, and they got me all the paperwork and all the supporting documentation. I went through it all. And I came back to you a couple months later, and I said, I think you're doing a good job. This looks right to me. And that's based on trust that the documents I was given were correct. Evidently, they're not. And the documents that were given to you were not correct. As a member in the community, when we go out and we vote for overrides and bond approvals, and we pay our taxes, and we send our kids to school, we trust you to do the right thing. This isn't the first time I've been in these chambers, and I've heard what I would call horror stories of children being neglected. And I choose that word on purpose. If a private preschool were to allow some of the things that I think maybe U5 are allowing, there might be consequences. The old joke about, a couple $100,000 here and a couple $100,000 there, and sooner or later we're talking about some real money. I sense that what's happening here, and maybe it's been going on for a while and it's become part of the culture, is that you're governing from the top down, and all those things at the top get taken care of, and the buildings and the buses, but then we don't have aides to help change children's diapers. It's unconscionable. And I'm speaking to you five. As many of you know, I'm a candidate for the Corporation Commission. People come to me and say, why don't you stop APS, and why don't you stop these people, and why don't you stop those people? And I say, they're just doing what they're supposed to do. They're a corporation, they have shareholders, and they're there to make as much money for their people as they can. The Corporation Commission is there to say, stop, enough. You haven't justified what you're asking for from the taxpayers. And I submit to you five that you need to stop this, because you're not being that buffer between the community, the children, and the administrators. The administrators are just doing what they're supposed to do. Government gets bigger and bigger. They want more and more money. They want more and more of this and more of that. And meanwhile, we have children that don't have paper to do their homework. We have teachers putting their own money in to support the classrooms. Unconscionable. Our classrooms should be so well stocked that other countries come here to do their studies in our classrooms because our kids are getting the best of everything. Our science curriculum should be such that we're the envy of other states. Instead, we're trying to recoup money from administrators. Some probably didn't know they were getting a windfall. Some may have, I don't know. But just like with APS, it's, an employee is worth his wages. You folks don't make any money. It gives you the responsibility, though, to watch out for us, for our children. You 5 are responsible for what's going on here. Maybe it's time to start reworking the budget from the ground up. What are the needs of the people at the bottom, and then the teachers, and then the bus drivers, and work our way up until we get to the administrators, and if there's anything left over, they can get paid. And if they do their job well, they should be well compensated. But not at the expense of not enough paper in the classrooms, not at the expense of children that have to wait to have their personal needs taken care of. It's your responsibility to make sure these children are taken care of. Or there won't be any more bond money, there won't be any more overrides. And it's my influence now at the legislature, when the teachers come down and say, we want more money, the legislature says, we give you lots of money. The school board doesn't put it in the classroom.
Mr. Tucker, I'm sorry, but I think we're past the 3 minutes. I believe I heard the second bell.
Oh yeah, easily past the 3 minutes.
Okay, I didn't want to cut you off, but I do believe it was.
I should never have taken a breath.
I think, Dr. Lesser, I could tell that you wanted to respond to that. There's so much I'd like to respond.
Mr. Tucker, thank you. Yes, thank you for sharing your thoughts and passion about the work that we do. I want to reassure you that we come to work here every day in Mesa Public Schools, whether it be people who have been here for 2 or 3 years to an individual who has been here for 32 years, with the goal of realizing great learning opportunities for our children. One of the reasons why we're speaking about these things today is because we do believe that our trust has been shaken with the community. So we come to you today with the facts as we have them to say this is what we know from the audit, and this is the action that we're taking now, and that there is still action to be taken moving forward. So our goal is to say, here's the information that we have. We want you to have it as well and know that this is important to us. We are spending many hours right now talking about the budget and determining where the dollars are best spent. And I would tell you there's a lot of needs in the district because we're the 48th or 49th state in the United States as far as resources given to schools. So that is a challenge that we have, and we are extremely appreciative of the great support that our community has provided Mesa Public Schools for years, probably dating back 120 years when our district began. That they've believed in the work that we do. They know it's important for our community. And we want that relationship with you, our constituents. We want there to be the trust and pride in the work we do. And we're going to work hard to earn that all the time. If that has faltered today with you, I can guarantee you that we will be here at 6:30 tomorrow morning working hard for the people that we serve to regain the trust and provide an outstanding education to our children. With regards to, I realize everybody assesses resources differently. And when you speak about no IAs to do work, I can promise you, sir, that we look at a program, we assess the students that will be part of the program, we identify teacher, IA needs that we believe will serve those students best. Do we come back at a later time, another quarter, the next semester, another year, and readjust those things because we have more information about something that didn't work, or it could work better in a different way because we're getting feedback from people? We absolutely do. We're not perfect. We work hard to be better every day, and you have my promise as the superintendent that we will continue to keep that in the forefront of the decisions we make. If we have schools that simply do not have paper to do the work that school requires, then we need to do one of two things. Maybe we're not providing enough resources. It may be that we're not using the resources as best we can. But it is our responsibility as a leadership group to work through that and help make better decisions. So as you said, our students are served at their highest level in Mesa Public Schools. We're committed to that. I appreciate your passion, your thoughts about the work that we do and what you want for our community. I would also share, Mr. Tucker, that if you're receiving documents, we've attempted today to say, this is the truth. These are the audit documents. If you have documents that you believe are inaccurate, that they're not correct, that they tell a different story, then we need to have you come back in with those documents, and we'll sit down with Scott Thompson to either remedy the documents that you have, clarify what we've provided you, or make the corrections if they're inaccurate. So we're committed to doing that work. Thank you.
And if I might respond, and I would respond to the 5. If there's something wrong tonight, fix it tonight. You have the authority to direct these problems to get fixed now. Not later, not by study, not a committee. Fix it now. If there's something wrong, fix it. If the building's on fire, let's put the fire out and then worry about how it got started later.
Thank you.
Tucker, I agree with you. It's unconscionable. It's absolutely unconscionable that Arizona does not fund its public schools adequately. It is absolutely unconscionable. We do not get lots of money from the state legislature. And when we passed our override in November, I thanked God that we did, because this community knows that the legislature does not give us the resources that our kids deserve. I want our science labs to be the envy of the Western world. I want every English teacher to get every novel in every kid's hand that they can. I want our libraries brimming with books. But when you're 49th in the nation in per pupil expenditures, you get what you pay for. Having been a teacher for 31 years, I know what it's like to not be paid what you're worth, and I know what it's like not to be asked. And that's why I serve on the board. This community believes in public education. And what we've tried to do tonight is to say to the community, here are the facts. We can now operate as a school board from the facts. And we will make better decisions because we now have those facts. We don't have the authority that you think that we do. but we will do everything in our power to make it right for Mesa Public kids, but we can't fix it until we get the resources, the adequate resources to fix it. It's unconscionable. I totally agree with you.
And I appreciate your comments, and I too, I have a lot to be thankful for the teachers in my life. And it's easy to say the legislature doesn't give us, what they did 2008 levels. But what money you have needs to be spent as wisely as possible for the ones who need it the most. And I would suggest that most of us in this room would probably be okay with less. You folks work for nothing. That's how much you care. You spend all of this time away from your families, away from your business, sleepless nights going over numbers. Many of the administrators here, I sense, also put in a lot of work. And I concur with Dr. Lester's recommendation to recoup the money in a humane fashion that doesn't hurt the administrators that received the money. But it was given to them in error, and it needs to be given back. And I think every one of them would agree. We're not looking to punish, just even out the table. But if you have $100,000 that has to be spent on a school, I would suggest that the first place you spend it is in the classroom, with the students, with the teachers, for pencils and paper and crayons and film and the projectors to run them. And the computers now, I guess we're up to using computers and not the white elephant that we used to use in my class. And not do a budget from the top down. I don't have a doctor in front of my name or a bunch of letters after it. But it seems to me that if we can't have people to take care of the basic human needs of our students, or we don't have the basic response, the resources in the classroom that the teachers need to do a good job, then the resources at the top need to be moved to the bottom. And I don't know if 13 executive team members is good or 15 to run a staff of 10,000. That's something you folks need to think about. How can we meet our basic needs? How can we meet those needs that God requires us of good conscience to do? And to say, well, maybe the resources aren't being used right in the classroom. Maybe the teachers are allowing too many pieces of paper to be used. Teachers know what they're doing.
Mr. Tucker, the only reason I haven't stopped you is because I don't think there's anyone here that would disagree. I think we have worked hard. Our team here, our administrators, we do work hard for what you're talking about. And I appreciate what you're saying. I will speak for myself. I'm assuming others would feel the same. We appreciate your passion. We have the same passion. That's why we're here. And I also thank you for acknowledging that. And I would extend an offer because frankly, when you started to talk, it broke, I guess I shouldn't say it, as a woman, it broke my heart. As a woman phrase, maybe, I don't know, that's just how I feel. To hear that you have worked hard to gain and build up trust, and tonight you come to tell us you've lost trust. I know how that feels. I do know how that feels. And what I'd like to do is extend the opportunity that I had to build that trust back up by looking at the budget. We have been, and the district has been very transparent with the school board. I have had complete access to our auditor and the work that he's been doing. I feel much more comfortable today than I felt 2 months ago because of the transparency. And I would like to extend that same transparency to you so you can understand the numbers more fully as I do at this point. It is a complex budget, but it's not so complex that you can't sit down and figure it out. You can. It just takes time and more than a meeting like this.
And I appreciate that very much. And I think I've moved beyond the budget. I think the problem with the bonuses and the overpayment, I think that's been resolved. I think that's been taken care of. I thought you handled that very well, as soon as your general counsel would let you loose and let you do that. I'm moving beyond that now. I see a bigger problem.
Well, and I hate to cut you off, but, and I appreciate
You understand what I was going to say. I see a bigger problem.
And I was just going to say, Mr. Tucker, we certainly appreciate your feedback. If you would like to, I'd be happy to give you my information. If you would like to come in and speak further with me, this moment on an agenda item really is not for, back and forth banter about the agenda item. It is for constituents, if they want to share a perspective, that they have 3 minutes to do so. If there's further conversation, we want to afford you to do that. Unfortunately, this is not the venue where a board member says something and then you respond and then they respond to you. But if I can give you my card before you leave, I would be happy to sit with you and involve anybody here that can help answer questions or clarifications or take your feedback of things that you think just are not going well.
Well, Dr. Lester, I thank you very much for that opportunity. I think I'd rather go to the classroom and help with those students that need the help.
Awesome.
I think I'd rather do that than spend my time talking to you and trying to change your mind. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
I do have a question and or comment.
I'm sorry, Kiana.
So tonight I've heard, and we've listened to a lot. And as a governing board and as someone who sits here and listens to the community, and we all can say we have people who come with valid concerns, we listen, we hear, but just as a note to, I know there's not that many people in the audience, but people who may be listening and hear, we as a governing board are responsible for hiring one person, and that's our superintendent. And part of what leads us here today is we have a change of leadership. We have a change, and we're kind of getting to the point where we're disclosing part of what brings us to where we are right now, and know that every single thing that has been expressed, we hear, we feel, we have sleepless nights over it. I've been a parent who made sure that I went to Staples and got on a special account to send paper and make sure that we got extra papers based on the bonus points you get when you go to Staples. So I get that. This, unfortunately, as my colleague said, isn't a new thing about our schools being terribly underfunded and not having the resources that's needed. But again, with this complex budget, and to have Mesa being stellar and at times being a district where we have some of the highest and paid teachers, because I want to say teachers, even though we know it's not enough, it doesn't in no way compare to the work that teachers do, but to know that those teachers who are stellar also require administrators who are stellar, and it just kind of moves up the chain. And when you look at the whole thing, no, it won't ever feel right to know that somewhere in the system we're still just scratching for pennies to buy paper. We have teachers who are more than overworked and underpaid because now they're asking for volunteers. Because most of us who are here, if we haven't been a teacher, we've spent time in the classroom, working with teachers, setting up classrooms, doing all those things. So do know that we hear you, we value you, and everything that you bring to us, we bring to the leadership. That's why it's imperative that we have a superintendent who will do the right thing, the right way, every time to ensure that we correct and stay consistent and always be the beacon of light and education in this state and in this valley. We all have a tremendous amount of pride in this district, even with everything we hear that breaks our heart that doesn't go right, we're here, we're committed, we love our children, and every promise that was broken, we want to do our best to restore the confidence in that. And do know that we, as governing board members, are going to keep on day in, day out, talking to our leadership and making sure that we do everything in our power to make sure the money that you provide to, as when I say you, we're talking about our community, provides, which includes us, go to the areas that serve our children. Children first is where we are. Then, yes, we love our teachers, and we want to, because we need those teachers to actually provide those things for our children. I can't express enough how the 5 of us have agonized over all of the things that we've seen that's unjust. But do know, we're going to do everything in our power to make it right. Yes, we can't shake down the legislature. I wish we could. We can't do some of the things we wish we could overnight. I would like to have the budget and just go to the schools and just be the ruler of the schools and the imprints. But thank God that I'm a school board member, so I can't do any of those things, because one person can't do it, 5 people can't do it, but we have to stay united in the cause of serving our teachers, serving our students, having our dedicated classified staff stay on board with us, and do know that today is not the end. This is not a closed book. Now we've corrected these things. We know we've moved on. We still have many, many more days ahead to look at some of those things that has been brought up tonight and in the months prior that we know need to be corrected. We're not walking around in the dark. I will put it out there because it's a giant elephant in the room. We know inclusion, preschool inclusion. We know about times. We know about issues. We know about resources. But what are we going to do about it? We'll do the best we can. What are we going to do about special education? We're going to do the very best we can. And as Dr. Lesser is here, we're going uphill because it's time to get us a new superintendent, a new leader that's going to help us do the best we can to come back together and do the great work that we've always done and come out on the other side of the tunnel better and stronger than we've been before. So thank you for your time. I know it was a lot, but that's the kind of thing we think about day in, day out. And as you said, we don't get paid to do this work. When I look at this, it's because we all care so deeply about what happens to our future in our district. We love it, and we see it as our babies.
I was just going to say, bring us back to 7E, if there is any further discussion on 7E from the board members.
So all in favor say aye.
President, I really would like to say something.
I apologize.
I'll keep it quite short here and specific, but the board has set up for some years now an audit committee that reports directly to the board. It doesn't report to the superintendent, and it's that audit committee then that carried out this under the direction of the board. Then it directed Ken then to carry out this investigation. We're one of the few districts that has an audit committee that tries to be fiscally sound and responsible and carrying out our duties and having an internal audit that can tackle these projects. And so through my work with the audit committee, through my role as a CPA and by private profession, we take very seriously the way in which we spend our money and the way in which we allocate our resources. And I take very personally then that role as well. And so we are committed. There has been a ton of time put into what's the best way and best avenue that we go to proceed forward with the challenge we've been faced. And so just wanted to reaffirm that I'm in support of the direction that we're moving. We have a lot of work ahead of us. We need to get this particular item, we needed to spend the time to address it and address it appropriately to where we can get back to regaining the trust of the community, but then we've got to get on with the rest of running the district, and it's so important work for our kids. And just wanted then to express that as far as my support for moving forward.
So now, are you comfortable with going for the vote? So I would say all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. So with that, we will go to the superintendent's update, item 8A.
Thank you, Madam President, to members of the board. The superintendent search is officially kicked off this weekend with a 4-hour planning session last Saturday. The job is now open for applications at macandjake.com, and the posting closes March 12th. And you can see a variety of dates on the board here and on your screen as well that are the planning dates for the superintendent search process. The board continues to ask staff, students, and parents and community members to share their opinions on the state of the district and the characteristics they would like to see in the next superintendent in a survey at bit.ly/MPS search 2020. Please note that link is case sensitive. Staff, parents, students, and community members will also have the opportunity to participate in person feedback sessions the last week of February. We are finalizing dates, times, and locations, and we'll have more information available this week. Please be on the lookout for details, as we'd love to have a large turnout. The week of April 6th, we'll also be scheduling a Meet the Candidates live stream and video for the community to get to know our finalists, and additional possibilities to provide community feedback. We expect to announce the new superintendent at the April 14th board meeting. This is quite a tight timeline for our board, but we all know this work is important, and we look forward to sharing this journey with our community. Now, we have a lot to celebrate here in Mesa. Here's a short video featuring some of our recent celebrations. Concludes the superintendent's update for this evening. President Minor, board members, I turn it over to you for tonight's board member updates.
I'd like to begin with their update. Anyone?
I just wanted to share that one of the things I did in the past couple of weeks was go visit Rhodes Junior High for their Rhodes show. And it was a chance for the students to show off the things that they had been working on in their project-based learning. This jazz band was there as well. Their their therapy dogs were there. Wrong adjective with dog. Therapy dogs were there, and they were the hit of the evening. I would say they were very popular, and I was really impressed. And I also got a chance to meet with some community members, some superintendency members, the principal that were concerned about Rhodes and wanted to know, and we were able to reassure them and let them know how much, as a board, we support the innovation that's happening at Rhodes, how good things are happening at Rhodes Junior High. And if you have a question about Rhodes, I invite you to go and see for yourself.
Spent a lot of time talking with folks throughout the district and trying to gain some information about our community and our teachers and our principals before we select our superintendent. But there was one day in particular, January 29th, and I kind of want to call it my day of caring. I was invited by Principal Amy Breitenbucker to Kerr Elementary, and it was an afternoon where the staff takes care of each other. They're doing a program every Wednesday in the afternoon called Stoke Your Woke. And what they do is they meet in groups, and I'm very thankful that the 6th grade team allowed me to join them. And they opened up their session so that I could participate. These are sessions where teachers listen to one another, support one another, and guide one another with strategies to help keep them committed to serving our kids. Our kids are hurting, and our teachers have a form of PTSD, and they are helping each other. They are counseling each other. Come to school every day and meet the needs of those kids. I was so honored to be there. And then I got to go to lunch at EVIT. And A New Leaf, which a number of you know is a wonderful social service agency in our group, had a thank you luncheon. And I was directed to a round table, and I was sitting with kids. And they were kids from Las Sendas Elementary. And they were being honored as the Youth Volunteers of the Year. What they do is they take care of those in our community that need our help. They collect socks, they collect toiletries, they collect food. And they've been doing it for years. Principal Kazmarek, their teachers, Misty Schreiber and Michelle Zima, brought along their students, and they spoke about their important work and why it's so important to give and take care of one another. Past Presidents Andrew and Era were there. President Cameron was there. Vice President Lucy was there. Very proud of what they did. But they stoked my resolve that caring for one another matters. And I want to thank both Kerr and Las Sendas for rekindling that in me.
I had an enjoyable visit with Dobson High School. Each year as we prepare for the graduation, I have the opportunity to go out and meet with the student council. I had a grand time with Jacqueline Hernandez, who's the student body president out there, and the class president met me at the doors when I arrived, Roger Tunez, and then I visited with them and their student councils. The student councils do great work on their campuses. They provide assemblies and a variety of things. It's all, they get compensated the same level of compensation we receive. It maybe helps on their resumes, but it's invaluable in the services that they provide on those campuses. And it's a lot of fun to interact with the kids and to see their enthusiasm and to know that our future's in great hands with those kids. An opportunity to visit with Principal Buckley and appreciate the efforts that she's doing as a first-year principal out there at Dobson. She's Dobson born and bred, went to high school there, served there as an administrator, and now is the principal, and she's excited to be back there leading that school. It was a great time.
A week ago yesterday, I had the opportunity to visit Falcon Hill and Red Mountain High School. We always, as a district, feel very heavy-hearted when we find that one of our students has died, passed away, especially from a tragic accident. And I was very touched by how the Falcon Hill families pulled together on behalf of Holden and the Gardner family. I send my heart and support to the Gardner family. Holden's father works at Red Mountain High School as an assistant principal, and his secretary, Kathy, who was taking it quite hard as well because her grandson was Holden's best friend. But I just want to say that I'm so proud of the families at Falcon Hill. They've reached out and extended their love and support and understanding to the Gardner family, and I wanted to do the same. And if we could do that for every family that has a loss, it would be special to us. So I don't want to end on a sad note. The happy note is that the Mesa Public Schools families always come together when there's tragedy in our home. With that, we will move on to discussion items. 9A, which is presentation of the 2019 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report and the External Auditor Compliance Findings.
I could jump in on this one, then I'll turn it over to Dr. Lesser. The Audit Committee has been, as I mentioned, in place for a number of years. I serve on that committee, and I've received the reports from Ken Alexander and our external auditors, Heinfeld and Meach, and appreciate what they do, but felt it's important that we meet, have him actually formally present this to the board. In fact, Representative Michelle Udall has introduced legislation this session requiring us to approve this in a board meeting if that legislation was to pass in the future. But I think in light of our transparency, it's important that we have an opportunity to hear what he has to say, and there's a report. And overall, I can tell you that compared to other districts and what we have in the things we're doing exceptionally well in our reporting and in caring for the resources, and all the different audits that we get, a number of which Ken deals with.
Madam President, members of the board, as Mr. Peterson shared, our audit department led by Ken Alexander is an important part of the work that we do, being able to regularly review our practices and look for those instances where there should be changes or improvements or refinements to be made. It's important for us to explore that on a regular basis. Ken is here this evening to speak briefly about the 2019 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report and then the External Auditor's Compliance Findings. And I think, Ken, you're going to speak about a few of the most significant findings that they've shared with us. Please come on up and spend a little bit of time with the board.
Hello. President Miter, members of the governing board, I was asked to come and give an update on our annual audit for the year ended June 30, 2019. There were three things attached to this agenda item that I'll be talking briefly about. The first one is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. All of you should have a copy of this. This is basically our financial statements with notes and supplementary information, statistical information, which our independent audit firm gives an opinion on. And the opinion that was given was an unmodified opinion, basically stating that these financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects regarding the district's financial position. So that's what we're going for. That's what we got. We're very happy with that. This is what Mesa's known for ever since I've been here and long before I got here. So in addition to that, since we received more than $750,000 in federal funds, the next thing we have is a single audit report. That's the second thing that's in your handout. That's like a 14-page document. That's mostly focused on the federal side. It goes into internal controls over financial reporting and also goes over internal controls over compliance over federal programs. So the summary on that one is on page 9. If you wanted to look there, that gives a summary of what the auditor's findings are related to the single audit. The significant thing here is that we had no significant deficiencies noted or no material weaknesses over our federal programs that they reviewed. So those are great things. The last page of this single audit reporting packet shows that we had 2 findings last year, but they were corrected this year. So between the comprehensive annual financial report and the single audit reports, there were no material weaknesses or sufficient deficiencies noted. So that's good. Those are on mostly financial reporting with some internal controls. So the third piece is sort of the fun one. It's the USFR compliance questionnaire, Uniform System of Financial Records. Any school that has an audit has to have their auditors complete this questionnaire. And it is a 40-page questionnaire trying to determine whether we are in compliance with state and federal law. So on these 40 pages, there are yes/no questions that the auditors have to answer. And if there's any non-compliance, even one instance, they have to answer the question no. So over those 40 pages, the auditors actually had 11 instances where they had to answer no. Now that sounds like maybe a lot, but it's not at all. Trust me, we are normally in the 9 to 15 range. I came from the Auditor General's office. I had to review these things. Districts that were in trouble had 25 to 40 instances where they had answered no to. So I can go over some of the main things in there. So of those 11, all of those were discussed with the audit committee and district management. One thing I can say about district management here is we make sure those findings are legit before we move on and approve those things and say they're okay. We review documentation to make sure that the finding is accurate. And we also get them, auditors, to add verbiage to that to help explain the situation a little bit better than just, no, they didn't do this. For probably about 7 of the findings that we had this year, about 7 of those we had over the last couple of years. Sometimes it's very difficult to be in full compliance. A couple of them, they have things where we found 1 instance out of 50 things we reviewed, and an account code might have been wrong or something like that. So given the grand scope of their audit, they're going to sometimes find these exceptions. Other things are like partial day attendance that are very difficult. We have to calculate that on a per minute basis when students come and go on any given day. And we have other ones that are also that show up that we hope will be going away. One of them is principal debit cards, that we are now going to a P-card system, so that one should be coming off as well. We've had some that are just clerical issues, that we didn't have an Excel spreadsheet calculating something right. So what we submitted to the state was not supported by our worksheet because we had an error in the worksheet. So 4 of the other ones were things that were more anomalies that we had not seen before, but they just happened to happen. So we've vetted all those things out, and we'll be watching those things to make sure they don't happen in the future. Our auditors present this to district management, present it to the audit committee. Audit committee asks lots of questions regarding the nature of what's going on, and they advise the superintendent to help advise me on what to look at. That is sort of a overview of the process and what we receive for our annual audit for the year ended 2019. Do you have any questions or comments?
I think one thing to bring up, Ken, I think it was unusual that we had no comments on, or no exceptions on purchasing. If
Yes.
that held correct, if I recall.
Yes, the 3 big areas are student attendance, capital assets, and procurement. And we usually have a couple in those things, but this year was probably the best year collectively on all 3 of those areas. Student attendance is really hard given the amount of data we have to collect and documents we have to keep and retain and review. So those 3 areas were definitely improved this year.
Good shout out to our purchasing and procurement departments. They do a great job for us. My only comment was sometimes on social media, when I read comments about Mesa Public Schools late at night when I shouldn't be reading comments, they'll say, I'm not voting for this until they get an audit, until there's an, I want to hop on and say, every year there's an audit done about where our money goes, and knowing where it goes. There's not money that is not accounted for at the end of the year. We have it in this report, so we appreciate the hard work you've done.
Yes, you must have been pretty busy lately because you were doing this audit at the same time as the audit that we requested.
Well, and it's not just me, business support services, HR, employee benefits, everyone has their hands in this audit and have to provide information to the auditors and have that information really scrutinized. So there's a lot of back and forth. So I appreciate the hard work that everyone has done here. It makes my job easier. So.
Oh, that's nice that you said that for them. Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion? Oh,
This is just a discussion item. Yep. No approval needed.
All right, thank you.
right, thank you. You can go home and go to bed now if you.
I've been here this long.
It won't be long. Okay, so item number 10, first hearing, 2021-22 school year calendar. Dr. Lesser.
Mrs. Hollins, I think you have the controls over this. Do you need my clicker, or?
I do, unless you want to be driver.
I want to say in our budget next year, let's include more clickers. That's just, I don't know.
No, who said no?
Thank you very much. As you know, at our last board meeting, we brought to you a recommendation to consider extending the current calendar model for one additional year with a variety of reasons behind that. So tonight I would like to take you through the first hearing of the 2021-22 school year calendar. The first thing I'd like to do is remind you of the policy, the governing board policy that is associated with the school year. That's policy IC that says no later than February of each year, you will adopt the calendar for the following year. However, you've already met that requirement, as I pointed out last time, because you have already adopted the 2021 calendar. We're actually a year ahead right now. So this is, I just want to make sure everybody understands which year we are having this hearing for. There are also some additional state requirements that we need to follow when we set our student calendar, and I've noted the statutes for you here. One is that the student calendar must total at least 180 days. There are some caveats in statute for schools that do 4-day school weeks, things like that, but in general, it's a 180-day school year. And then there are some very specific holidays that we are required to give, and I'll just note that the language that I use on this slide is the exact language of the statute. So July 4th, Veterans Day, December 25th, and Thanksgiving Day. And then there's an additional caveat that says any recess during Christmas holiday season shall not exceed 2 school weeks. So we have some additional district practices that we have, as you have said, many longstanding traditions in Mesa Public Schools, and some of our practices are just that. We do recognize some additional holidays throughout the school year: Labor Day, MLK or Civil Rights Day, President's Day, spring holiday, and then I call out Memorial Day just because it falls usually right after the student calendar is over. We also end the first semester at the beginning of winter break. That is probably the most popular anchor that we use in our calendar. So when the students go home for break, finals are over and they can actually take a break before they come back for second semester. We, at the end of first quarter, for quite a while now, have been offering a break, a fall break, and at the end of third quarter, we have spring break. We also try to balance the number of many of our classes. When they are year-long classes, that does not become as critical as those then when we have semester classes. We also, if we are going to have any imbalance, try to have more days in the spring semester to account for the testing days that are required. And finally, we try to coordinate with other educational organizations whenever possible to positively affect the family life in our community, where maybe someone doesn't work in the district where their children go to school. So with all of that district practice, I will remind you of what our current calendar model looks like. We have had this model for the first time this year, the 1920 school year. We have this model again next school year. Fall break is 1 week in length. Thanksgiving break is 3 days in length, and that was the one change we had made for this calendar model. We added the Wednesday before Thanksgiving as a day off. Winter break is 2 weeks, and we try to, if at all possible, have 3 weekends associated with those 2 weeks off from school, and then we have 1 week for spring break. Here's a reminder of the recommendations why we recommended what we did. We are recommending a 1-year cycle as opposed to our standard 2-year cycle so that we can ensure that we have future alignment with the strategic plan, that we're addressing the needs of the master plan. We are recognizing the fact that we have a new superintendent of schools coming. We made recent changes to our daily start and end times, as well as our Wednesday early out schedule and eliminating late start. And we have had a significant number of requests for the community for input. Everything from the strategic plan to the master plan to the current survey for the superintendent search, and then the focus groups coming up. So we have copious amounts of data from the previous survey, which trends very closely to several surveys back. So we're confident that the data that we had when we set this calendar is valid and reliable data. So here's the proposed 2021-22 calendar. The first day of school would be on Tuesday, August 3rd. Fall break would fall the week of October 4 through 8. Thanksgiving break, November 24 to 26. The winter break, December 20th to December 31st, with classes resuming on January 3rd. Spring break, March 7 to 11, and the last day of school, Thursday, May 19th. Now, I know there's going to be several questions, so I'm going to answer them before you ask them. The first would be, wow, Tuesday, August 3rd seems really early. Did you think about doing Tuesday, August 10th as the start day? Yes, we did, but we have data from last year. Those of you who were on the board 2 years ago may remember that we proposed for next year an August 4th start date, and you said, wow, that seems really early. Did you think about August 11th? And we went out and we surveyed the community to ask them, would they prefer an August 4th or an August 11th start day? And the clear winner was the August 4th start. So yes, I did consider the August 10th, but I also considered our community's voice, and that's why we're proposing Tuesday, August 3rd. Yes.
And that is a result of the way all the other holidays lined up. So it wasn't just that open question, it was that it's connected to having the additional day Thanksgiving, at this time at least, and also having a fall break as well as a spring break, and getting out before Memorial Day weekend, and all of those factors that create that start date creeping into the first week of August, is my understanding.
Second thing you're going to ask is, well, how do we do with lining up to our surrounding districts and higher institutes of higher education? So for those districts that have their calendars for this year already published, some of them we could not obtain that calendar, I can let you know that our fall break, our spring break, and our winter break is aligned with the Gilbert School District. Our fall break aligns with one of the 2 weeks that the Chandler District takes off. It does not align with their spring break, and it does align with the week spring break that ASU gives. So I think we did a great job of aligning with our surrounding communities, because we know the East Valley doesn't have walls between cities. We all travel between them readily. So that is my presentation for the first hearing on the calendar. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Do have somebody that's waited so patiently for the end of this meeting that would like to speak to the board. And again, it is 3 minutes, but Renee Hall, are you still here? Yay, you hung in there. Yay. You learned so much about us all the way through the meeting in order to get here, so it was well worthwhile, right?
Okay, so thank you for hearing from me. This is not my forte. I teach kindergarten. So greatest job ever. But with that, I'm also a mother, and that was my first job. And so when I look at the proposed school calendar that's coming up, I just wanted to run some things by you, some concerns that I have, as well as other coworkers and parents that I associate with. As we start our school earlier and earlier, I understand that we are aligning it to breaks, semester breaks, quarter breaks, all of that. And as a teacher, I do appreciate that when I get to fall break, I get to take some time off. Granted, we still have report cards and things that have to be done. Last year, we started school early. We had 9 days where our students could not participate in either recess or PE activities because of heat advisories. And so as a teacher, especially for those little kids, that means so much to them and us as teachers that they get out and they have that time. And as we push that start date early and earlier, you're only getting into hotter and hotter days for these little kids. When one day we had the air conditioning go out at our facility. It went out overnight. We all returned to school not knowing that the air conditioning had been out. Students were still brought to school. Parents were not made aware that the air conditioning was out. They did repair it, but in my room, the temperature never got below 84. I had students throwing up. I had students falling asleep. I had students getting sick. Just not a good situation. As we are considering our budget and all of the concerns that have been brought up this evening for our budget, running our facilities and our bus drivers and our staff in that kind of a heat and those kind of expenditures that come with that, I don't see how that helps the bottom line. Speaking as a mother, I treasure the time that I get with my children. They are the most important thing to me. And as I look at my summer getting shorter and shorter and their summer getting shorter and shorter when they need that break as much as I do, I wonder how does that strengthen my family and encourage me to be a better mother and teacher when I have less and less time with my own children and my patience is this much when I'm dealing with these little kids in the heat. More time in the classroom as we spread out our school year does not make me a better teacher or a better mother. And that is my goal in this. So, there you go.
Thank you, Renee. Do you have any comments, Dr. Lesser?
You know, Mrs. Hollins maybe has a thought or two about this, but I would say one of the biggest challenges, if we start a week later, then we finish a week later, and the summer, now the summer's the same length because we've got to have 180 days. So starting later doesn't change the length of the summer. Starting later would potentially change what the hot days look like. You know, I've been out here for a few years. I hail from Wisconsin, where it was snowy and rainy and slushy for about 8 months out of the year. So I like it when it's warm, but my wife was a teacher in the district for 32 years, and so I know about rainy day schedules. I know about heat warning day schedules and what happens on those days. I think that's an issue. One of my thoughts would be, as we move to the future, I'm curious what the temperature is a week later. And I know our Linda Mann is a longstanding elementary person, and it would be interesting to see the average temperature a week later, because if a week later it's the same temperature as the week earlier, I don't know what we gain by going a week later. But you've shared some points that absolutely our community has shared. We try to balance that. The heat warning days can be tough on an elementary school. And I think sometimes they attempt to use maybe different parts of the facility. I know that some schools maybe use the multi-purpose room to allow kids to at least, exercise their legs and move about, but I'm not saying that's a perfect answer, but I know that that weighs heavy on the principals as they make decisions about staying inside and so forth. So I appreciate your feedback. It absolutely is something for us to consider moving forward. Appreciate the voice of yourself and other colleagues that, and other families that you may represent. Thank you.
Can I talk for 1 second? I feel you. When she looked and said, I know last year I'm going to answer your questions before you have them, it's because those are my questions. That last year I said, stop, I don't want to approve that, go back and ask because I want to start a week later. Because that's the way I feel. I am with you. However, I do know that this is a cycle in the calendar, and this year, this 2021 year is my, or 21-22 year will be my least favorite in the cycle because it starts the earliest. I don't like being out a whole week before Christmas. I know some teachers may really like that. I, as a mom, don't love that because I would rather have the downtime with my kids after Christmas instead of those weeks before. Like, this is my year that I'm like, I am not into this calendar at all, but it will correct itself the next year if we stay on it because it will drop back down the week and it will be later. And so I feel you, and I'm the one who says, hey, let's start a week later and let's slide everything back. And I got outvoted by the survey I had them do last year just because I wanted to start a week, not just because I felt like everyone would think like me, and they did not. And it surprised me and a little irritated me, but it's okay, I can deal with it. But that is my will. I thought, okay, it does self-correct. This is the worst calendar that we have, and it will drop back down to the one I like. And then parents will get more and more worked up as we get earlier and earlier again for the next 7-day cycle as the year rotates. But I've made peace with it in that way, and I just offer that for you, I guess.
Helen, do you have additional thoughts on the conversation here?
Actually, I just wanted to say the one, we did send the proposed calendar out to all employees electronically, and then we sent it out to all parents as well. And we have been monitoring any responses or feedback so that we could see if there was any trending that we needed to be aware of. So on the parent responses, they've been minimal, but the ones that were, hey, I thought we were going to go to the modified year-round, which you probably don't want to hear. But that is the only thing we've heard there, and it's less than a handful. Other than that, it's been very quiet. And on the employee side, other than some clarifying questions, there were, I think, 2 employees who said, could we consider having a day of professional development when we come back from Christmas break instead of going right back to kids. So similar to, I think, what Gilbert's doing, what Chandler does after major breaks, giving kind of a recharge. So I would say, let's put those ideas in our back pocket for the next go-round. Those might be things that we want to start considering as we look to future calendars.
Mrs. Minor, I can see that you have somebody who's holding a request to speak form in the back. Sir, is that, you got him? Oh, good, okay. I just saw him raise his hand and wave his yellow form.
I know that person. I do know that person.
Garrett's mother, I know you very well. Just a quick note, because we have 2 years to start early in August, is that right?
Wait.
This August.
Come on
up.
There comes the Wisconsin guy out here.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you bet. Leo, I'm sorry, I didn't think I was going to have to say anything. No, but is it correct, there's 2 years, we're starting early August? Okay. Okay. Right. But that, having said that, just going off what she was saying is, even though if the temperature is the same a week later, you're adding 7 more days of that, or 5 more school days. So, bottom line, it's not ideal, and we're not happy about it.
We hear you. Yes, we hear you.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, you can. Always.
I really would like us to see us shift this back a week. I guess my number one here is that for the 12 years I've been on the board now is that we've always had kind of the anchor of finishing the Thursday before Memorial Day. Now we're finishing a week and a half before Memorial Day. The second thing is that when we the board approved this calendar for 2021, then I was told or under the impression that it would correct itself the next year, which is not. It's actually worse now for 21-22. And so I do not see why we couldn't shift this back a week and have it finish, as has been my understanding, the anchor of being the Thursday before Memorial Day, and move the start date back a week. Christmas in this particular year will be on Saturday. The kids are getting out the week before. You could easily move days to be out on the Wednesday instead of the Friday. And what's that?
Remember, we like it to wrap around 3 full weekends, and if you get off on Wednesday, is that right, Pete? Am I?
Anyway, just
I know, I'm learning some of the things we hate, balanced with the other things I hate, but I also feel you, Stephen. Good job.
Anyway, that's my feelings and thought. I think we should move it back a week.
And it would mean, though, that you'd finish first semester in January. That's the problem.
If you shift days back, and then if you shift it to Wednesday, you can pick up 3 days there out of the 5 that you're shifting, and so you may shift a little bit, but I think we can find a way to make it work if that's what the board wants.
Because it's really advantageous.
I agree. To finish
the semester before Christmas.
So the other option would be to have imbalanced semester days, and you would have a much longer spring semester and a shorter fall semester. So that would be one consideration, is that but I agree with Mrs. Richardson, all the feedback we have ever gotten when we do a midweek start and finish to winter break is that is not a popular choice from our community and our employees to not get the 3 weekends over the winter break. So you would want to consider that.
How many days difference do you happen to know off the top of your head? How many more days in the spring semester would there be than the fall?
So the current proposed calendar has 89 days in fall and 91 days in spring. Assuming we do a 1-week, 5-day shift, that would take us to 84 and 96.
And if I may just add a note to that, part of the feedback that we've received over the years, or at least from teachers, is that if you have fewer days first semester, more second semester, then there are fewer instructional days before state testing of instruction. And so there has been conversation that it's tight now, trying to prepare the students for the testing period of time, and I know that they've shared that with us as well.
Discussion. Okay, any other discussion on this item? Before we go to the final item of adjournment, I just want to express my appreciation again to Dr. Lesser for the long hours. I know that he's been putting into the efforts for this evening's meeting, long hours, weekends. And I also want to express my appreciation to the board, because I feel like we have a very cohesive board. We work hard together. Your comments are solid. I know that's not always the case with board members in other districts. I don't know of any in particular, but I know that it would be unlikely that every board is as cohesive as ours and the comments as sound and as well thought out. So I appreciate all your time and support of doing this. I also want to just say I appreciate our administrators. I know this hasn't been easy for them either, and I don't think it's been easy for anyone. This has been difficult, and I want to extend my personal appreciation to them. It's been hard. It's been hard on everyone, and I know you guys work very hard at your jobs. I appreciate the hard work you do, and I know you will continue that hard work on behalf of Mesa Schools. So thank you.
Mrs. Minor, if I may say, I certainly appreciate your kind words, but I would share with the group here that we really have a remarkable team of leaders that support the work that we do. They work tirelessly at being experts at the jobs that we've hired them to be experts in. They are collaborative. They are leading the work of strategic planning and master planning. And we are in good hands with a team of people that work on behalf of our community. And I want to say that your comments to me, I pass those on to our group of leaders simply because of the amazing work that they do on behalf of Mesa Public Schools. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I want to go back to the calendar one. I'm not through with that one. I'm requesting, if all four of you want to stick with this one, then I'll be silent. But if any interest at all, I would like to request that this superintendency put together what a calendar would look like if it was moved back to a week. And I would like some feedback on that. If I'm the only one, then I'll let it go. But I feel strongly that we should look at starting a week later.
The August, for as long as I know, and I just felt like I was just out of generations, August 10th is always a big thing for school starting for me, because I actually have a child who's born on August 10th, and I remember she could never have a party with a lot of friends like her sister because of the start of the school year. So definitely, I know there's a lot of people who used to, that's the way it is, and I know we're doing new and inventive things, but I think I would support looking at that alternative, because I do remember we started off with the week earlier as an adjustment for whatever I don't remember all the terms, but I remember it was like that one-time adjustment. Now it seems like going forward, that's what we're setting as the precedence of we're going to just start a week earlier.
Okay.
Would it be okay if I took 2 minutes to review the data we have from our community about that shift? So from the previous calendar survey, when we went out and did the secondary survey, we presented 3 calendars to the community. The first calendar, calendar A, is very reflective of what you see tonight. It had a start date of August 4th. It had everything else the same. The last day of school was May 20th, and I believe Memorial Day of that year is May 31st. So it is more than 1 week before Memorial Day end to the calendar. So very reflective of what you've seen. Calendar A. Calendar B started a week later, and everything else remained the same. And we had it ending on May 27th, just a few days before Memorial Day. And calendar C, we did the imbalanced semesters, where the fall semester was very shorter, I should say, and spring semester was longer, and we adjusted which week October break was. Was October break the first full week of October or the second full week of October? Because I believe the other part of the conversation was, gosh, that's so early in October. The data from overall responses, from certificated employee responses, from classified responses, and from parent responses, calendar A outweighs calendar B and C by far. Calendar A got 61.8% of the vote, calendar B got 14.5, calendar C got 23.6. So even if you add calendars B and C together, they were still significantly less preferred by every subgroup. So that said, I'm happy to develop that calendar, but I think if you had me do that, I would also tell you we'd have to go out and survey that calendar because it would not reflect the data that we have. I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers with me. I'll be happy to look them up. I'm not going to guess. I can get that number. It was a significant number of individuals.
I remember that study. It was my least favorite study of the whole year.
because it didn't agree with me. It didn't back up me. It didn't back me up. So I'm always happy to look at it again. We certainly have time. This is a few years away, so we've got a little time, but I'm happy to look at it again.
And my daughter was born August 19th, and she was born during the summer.
That is the olden days, Marcy. How old are you?
So what's the board's conclusion on this one? Are we going to stick with where we're at? Are we going to ask them?
Let's survey. Loves it.
Yep.
Heidi, we're doing a survey.
Let's survey the two.
Hey, Lester, speak up. You did this 2 years ago. You said, of course I'll bring back another calendar. Of course I'll bring it. Do you remember? I was there.
Okay, let's. Okay, so is that what the conclusion of this is going to be? We're going to go ahead. Is that what, are we okay with that? All right. That's what we're going to do.
Do you want Mrs. Hollins to bring back a sample of the calendar so you can see it side by side with the one that appears before you today? Or do you want to go out for a complete survey of calendar options?
I'm good with a sample, just to look at it and compare. Could you do, is that okay? And then we'll determine if we need.
You're one voice. We're just trying to.
I think the first thing I think he said was the sample calendar, right?
Do you want to see a sample starting a week later where all the days end up? Or, Mrs. Hollins, I'm looking at you and I'm thinking that, do you want us to put together a survey? What's the other option? A survey of these two options?
So as I sit here and listen, I do worry that if we only go out and survey a calendar A and a calendar B, that is very different than what we've ever done with the community to say, first tell us what type of calendar you like, and then tell us the nuances of that. So to go out and just do what I'll call that secondary calendar survey of just that nuance, I'm worried that what you'll get is a lot of feedback of, wait, but where's the modified year-round? That's the one I wanted to vote for. So.
And if I may add to that, I'm just grabbing the presentation here. Let me go to the page I'm looking for. That when we've presented this to you, we are presenting this with the mindset of that there are some changes coming forward. We are hiring a new superintendent. We are developing a strategic plan. We are developing a master facility plan. And we're attempting to say, what does all that mean? What does all that change mean in the midst of more change in a calendar when next year I would sense that there is the possibility to go out and do a full-blown survey of our community with the knowledge of the strategic plan, the master plan, a new superintendent taking the role of leadership, because the results have indicated every year we move a little bit closer to the modified year-round schedule. And our concern is to go into a year with a different schedule, the one a week later than this, and then the year after turn into a modified year-round schedule. That's a significant amount of change in the midst of change in leadership, strategic plan, master facility plan. We just started all the start and end times of all of our schools this year. I share that with you because that's the message that we shared the last time, bringing this forward to you, is an attempt to limit change under circumstances that we see are changing significantly.
So we need to come to a conclusion here. So how about if, could we draft up one, not do the survey between now and the next time? I'll get with Helen, like, we go through the numbers, and then we can discuss that next board meeting, whether to go out for a survey or not.
The draft of that calendar will not be difficult to put together, and I'm happy to include it in Friday status so that you have the opportunity to look at the two of them side by side.
Could you
think
send out
that's
the
a good
results
call.
from those surveys as well on that?
Absolutely.
Okay, with that, I think we are done.
Will you be able to do the 3 weekends even with the, what we're doing, this modified calendar? Can you try to have that be part of it?
Yes, my intent would be to literally shift everything down a week.
Okay.
So we'll see 3 weekends, and the primary outcome will be that the semesters will be imbalanced.
Okay.
Ready for the final item of 11? Jenny?
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Ellen, if you could also get us ice cream on Fridays, that would be good.